Board of Education. Let's go. Ken's tie wants to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, after you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we had a sign up.
We do. Esther Kennedy was on the list.
Over.
Sorry, we're gonna mount it over here when we. Do you want me to time?
Are you able to do that?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Good morning. Thank you for having this meeting today and being part of this board. My name is Esther Kennedy, and I'm the Director of Student Service for the Guilford School System, as well as I've taught 24 years in graduate classes in the area of special needs for Plymouth. And I'm just here today to thank you for looking at our initial proposal for the endorsements. I carry many of these endorsements. I think they're very important to our field to bring expertise in areas. As you review them today, I will be here if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Our committee was excellent. We had a lot of different people from different walks of our state to be part of that committee. And we went through all these endorsements with a lot of scrutiny, a lot of quality background of the people, and also looking into the future, in particular when it comes to technology. I do want to bring up that one of the endorsements we would like to look at in the very near future, our committee had talked about, is we don't have anything in autism, and that is something we would like to move forward in. So we hope that you approve these endorsements at your next meeting, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Francistown. I think this was, you're welcome to come up and give me the background, but I think this is a pretty straightforward.
That's what
That's we hope. Yeah. So you just got to change meeting date.
Yes.
We want to,
The only comment I had was that, when I look at the warrant article itself, it says special school district business meeting warrant. Maybe just maybe drop the business part, just a special district meeting is what the statute says, just to make sure it's bulletproof. And then the only other thing is that did you have a legal counsel review your warrant?
Yes.
As well? Awesome.
all right. So,
And you are gonna update the warrant with the new date?
Correct.
Okay.
there.
I move that the State Board of Education approve the Francistown Independent School District's request for a special meeting date.
I would amend that to say as provided the language is consistent with statute, referring to special meeting.
So moved.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You guys. We have parent in this one school board. The party's here for that.
Yes.
So I don't know if you remember from last time, but you guys have the option of asking for us to do this in non-public if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91A32C, which is actions that can of an individual.
I move that the State Board go into non-public. So with RSA 91A.3,
Second. Let's do a roll call.
Aye.
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 To close everything down?
The eye look, Bill. So that's right.
I think when it kind of,
Yeah.
I think that was previous.
don't remember the details of it.
Is that for the horse program?
Yeah,
muted us.
because I couldn't, it was one of those where it was, better options, better.
Is it really loud up
Yeah.
here? You can feel like.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we're back on. It's cherry color. That one for me, because I said, that's Lynn's cherry color. That's what she said.
Anyway.
It's gotta have.
Talk about it later.
What?
That's an idea.
Protein and.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I do have, I mean, there's a, I don't have it, I do have one.
You like that, you know.
You would like that because it's the ones I have.
Yeah, it's very low sugar. Yeah, it's almost no sugar. It's like just a little bit, it's like a quarter of the time. Yeah,
Okay.
we don't need it. The fruit is
Now,
sweet.
now I get it.
Okay, are we back on?
We are back on.
All right, we need a motion to seal the minutes.
I move that we seal the minutes.
Roll call. All right, MAE Chartered Public School is up next.
Morning, Al Bear with the Charter School Office.
No, you're correct, sorry.
You were going.
You're good, yep.
Okay, I am good. Introducing, we have Montessori Academy of Entrepreneurs Charter Public School. I will let Nate Feldman do the introductions and, Nate, y'all's show.
I'm Nate Feldman. Thank you very much for having us today. We're here to present the Montessori Academy for Charter School. Montessori Academy for Entrepreneurs Charter School. This is Eric Feldman. He's currently the acting board chair of the Academy, and Jean Demers, who's acting as head of school. I'm here as I did a lot of work in the preparation of the charter, but I am also here to sort of, in a process-wise, kind of hand it off to what we hope to be the launch team for the school that we're aiming to target for September 2027 open. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Eric to sort of lead off the idea for the school, how we got here, and what we're sending to you today.
Thanks, Nate. Again, my name is Eric Feldman. I'm a retired nonprofit executive with 35 years experience in management, strategic planning, and fundraising. My role will be to manage the business affairs during the federal CFP grant period prior to school opening in September of 2027. I want to thank the board for this opportunity and also Commissioner Davis and Tall Bear for their oversight in helping us prepare the proposed charter. I'd like to begin by introducing the operating team, which Nathan and Jean have just been introduced. We have other board members who have agreed to serve should the charter be granted. First is John Cassidy, Vice Chair and Banking Signature. We're going to have all our banking relationships done by a non-paid board member so that we keep clean hygiene there. He's VP of North American Sales at the Sterilite Corporation. He was to be here, but he got called into a meeting, so he may slip in quickly. Then not here with us, but on the board are Danielle Paul, CPA and owner of Squaretail CFO, and Tracy Estes, Northeast Regional VP of AIG Insurance. And the last trustee is Pushpa Rao, a Montessori certified educator here in New Hampshire. We also have in the audience Caitlin Blundell, who we have developed a proposed contract with to serve as our outside bookkeeper and accountant, should we be approved. And we've also been meeting with Casey Silva to help us understand the process of the grant and also the training necessary. I'd like to highlight the key elements of the charter school plan. First of all, our philosophy is that May will build entrepreneurial skills on top of a Montessori foundation. Our vision is to give the graduates the confidence, skills, and digital tools to launch ventures, pursue passions, and contribute meaningfully to their communities. Our mission is to empower students to become ethical leaders, independent thinkers, and resilient problem solvers in the world they will inherit. Under that philosophy, we have a purpose, a couple-fold. First, to serve low-income populations, students with disabilities, and neurodivergent learners, and any others that are disengaged or underserved in traditional settings. We want to graduate students with more than a diploma, but with a life plan that sets goals and objectives for their future education, training, career, and community engagement. And we also want to innovate transferable programs that empower students for the very different future they are facing. And we hope those would be able to be utilized more broadly by the public school community. Just a word about our budget. We are provisionally approved for the federal CSP grant, which would begin should your approval be forthcoming. And that would cover, of course, our first year of operating expense to build out the school property, to hire the people, acquire the equipment, all of those things that you're aware of. And we project starting in September of 2027 with 54 students. And the income and expenses of that result in an ending fund balance of 30,000, which is detailed very specifically in the charter. We also have a provisional budget if we would only acquire 40 students. That produces a net fund balance of negative $5,000, and we have a fundraising plan to cover that if it's a contingency. Moving on to our education plan, we have these following highlights. Individualized learning plans for every student, Montessori-inspired model that promotes independence, responsibility, and self-direction, entrepreneurship integrated throughout the curriculum to teach innovation, financial literacy, leadership, and problem solving, with a strong focus on core academics, including mathematics, science, English language arts, social studies, and civics. Regarding infrastructure, we have a proposed location at 410 Amherst Street in Nashua, New Hampshire. Previously, that space was used as Nashua School's special education location and also a private school. So it's part of the way along to having a CO, not all the way to public level, but lots of stuff, not any major construction needing to be done. And we have a landlord MOU in place to initiate a rental agreement.
Lease agreement?
Yeah, a lease agreement, sorry, brain freeze. Again, that would start after this meeting, should we would sign that and go forward, should we be approved. We're in discussion with several banks about a cash flow loan to help with the difference between the federal monies are approved, but you don't actually get reimbursed till you spent some money. And that looks very favorable for us. In staff development, Jean has put together a team that will be convened to interview and hire staff, both public people, Montessori people, and just pick the best possible staff. We will have comprehensive onboarding for all staff focused on the main mission, Montessori principles, competency-based education, and entrepreneur instruction. And we will have ongoing opportunities for staff to learn from industry professionals, community partners, and educational experts. Regarding marketing, again, we're located in Nashua, the second largest and most diverse population in the state. Families are already talking to us because we met them during Nathan's private school experience, and they're unable to afford a private school, but want the approach that's being offered in this school. And we've also been involved in the homeschool movement, especially COVID defectors who are just looking to get back into school on a different plane than their traditional school. Just a word on fundraising. John Cassidy from Sterilite and myself will lead that. We have already $20,000 in pledges based on charter approval, and our goal is to raise $60,000 before opening in September of 27. In closing, I'd like to share a word of personal passion for the May School. Why did this gray-haired retired guy jump back in? In recent days, we've celebrated a few once-in-a-lifetime events. Two of them stand out to me. America celebrated 250 years of being the country which offers anyone the most opportunity for success in the history of the world. The second event is World Cup Soccer is being hosted in cities all across our nation. One result is that 1.2 million global visitors have been blown away by their American experience. From the hospitality of a car ride from a random Bostonian to a German family, to the wonder of unlimited refills at our soda machines, America has stunned the world with its generosity, creativity, innovation, and abundance. Our public school system is the foundation of our country's development of those qualities. I believe the Montessori Academy for Entrepreneurs Charter School will strengthen that foundation for our future. Thank you.
Any questions?
Well, I was just wondering, Jim, are you satisfied?
Yeah.
We were all thinking the same, I was saying.
The charter school guy, just so you know. I respect what you guys are doing, first of all, and that was a good presentation. I've looked at your information and it looks pretty good. One of my biggest concerns, and you've addressed it, is having the appropriate leadership in place. And when I say that, I'm not only referring to quality educators, but also business acumen. Because you're running a business as well as running a school, and you can't just be all, aspirational. That's powerful, but you do need to have someone who can handle a balance sheet, and it appears you do. So I'm very impressed by that. I'm happy with that. I do know the hard work that goes into it. I've had a hand in several. $20,000 in pledges so far. You've got a lot of fundraising to do. That's always huge. My question I have for you is enrollment and enrollment expectations. I saw some of the numbers in here. What do you have for pledged, I guess you'd say pledged enrollment if you open, like that sort of, hey, if you open this up, count me in. I mean, do you have any commitments?
So it may be our mistake, but we felt it was improper to go out and seek that when we'd not had approval. And so we haven't actually sought it. We've listed down names of people that expressed interest, and task one is to start calling them. Regarding the fundraising, I view it as we have a whole year and 60,000 is the minimum. Our budget is balanced at 54 students without fundraising. And so our goal is to say, can we get to 54 students? And in the situation in Nashua, with them closing 2 public schools this coming year, we're going to be in a market situation that's very advantageous to finding 54 students.
What is your max?
Pardon?
What is the most number of students you could serve?
120.
Okay. Is that enough? Now I'm talking dollars and cents. Is that enough revenue at 50, at 120? Anything south of about 100 tends to be financially difficult, I would think, from a revenue standpoint. Is that?
So if you look at the revenue details, I mean, I can open them up if you want.
I think.
No, it's more
Yeah, yeah.
general.
In the,
It's more of a general.
in the general statement, I think one of the things that's attractive about the space that we've looked at is it's a very controlled cost. Because of my private school experience, I have a relationship with that landlord. And so he has an 8,000 square feet space that's the 120 size, that we've talked about. But there's additional space for expansion within the building if we need it. But it's a triple net lease that controls costs over 5 years, I think, is what the MOU is. So there's a way that we're controlling for costs that I think you wouldn't maybe expect if we had it's in an office building. If we had a standalone building where we're paying for all the property and all the costs of carrying it.
Not a lot of upfit or refit that you need to.
So obviously I haven't gone through all the inspections for a public school, but it previously was Nashua School District's special education programming. This suite was, and it has previously housed an approved private school, non-public school for New Hampshire. So there is not a lot of fit up required for the space. For instance, we know that we have an asbestos on it. We know that it's done the Get the Let Out program.
My overall comment, I love what you guys are doing. I like the theme, all of that. I think you built things the right way. I don't want to call it a concern, but just keep your eyes on this. when you have less than 100 students, your revenue's obviously that much less, more focused, and you need to bring in revenue from elsewhere. Some of the more successful schools that have smaller populations are driving revenue from other sources.
You need to have some backup funds to cover them.
Backup funds, partnerships, other ways of doing it, or they have to run extremely lean. It's very hard to survive at 50 or 60 or
Can I
70
can I
students.
offer another counterpoint, but it like but when I look at I actually like saw the 54 and it's a growth trajectory over 5 years, you get to 107 at year 3 is your plan. Like there's a plan to get that, it's not the goal. It feels very much like, cause I've seen the opposite, charter schools come in and be like, we can get 300 kids and it's totally on that. And their first year, like they get 50. Like, so I feel like the balance of getting past 100 and that even in a catchment area as wide as your geographic area, which has a lot of children in it, as opposed to like some of the North Country charter schools, it's like I don't know, Jim, it feels like a
No,
reasonable.
you're right, absolutely. And I'm a big proponent of starting off smaller and growing into your space. As long as you understand when you're smaller, you're a little tighter.
I just looking at your budget, I mean, I think they've planned well for that and the growth trajectories look reasonable. My only disappointment is that the way you guys have it structured, my youngest son is not gonna be eligible. He's always
Yeah, where
gonna
was
be-
this when I went to school?
He's always gonna be 1 year ahead. And he wants to start his own business. So like this would be, you're creating something that does not exist in the state of New Hampshire anywhere. The Montessori, we have some Montessori charter schools. We don't have anything that is focused on what you guys are focusing on, which I think is really powerful, attractant to a certain type of student. Because you're telling them we're gonna have hands-on learning. We're gonna have project-based learning, but this isn't loose or willy-nilly or go play and find yourself. This is very seriously structured. I was really impressed with that in your application. This is, without hyperbole, I think the strongest charter school application I've seen in my time on the board. In terms of how you guys have anticipated your needs and students' needs and how you've built structure. When we have weak charter schools, it's usually one or two reasons. It's usually Jim's pet peeves, which is their board doesn't have any business or finance or planning or management experience on it, and they're weak in that area and they fail as a nonprofit. Or they don't have enough structure in the school day. They don't know how they're going to evaluate the kids and how they're going to actually move them from one grade to the next. And you guys have anticipated all that. But you're also offering something here where you're focusing these students on building a business plan or a career plan or an education plan for when they graduate, that I think does a service to students in a way that I wish all public schools would do, which is think about planning your life in the next few years after college, not do a willy-nilly, well, gee, I feel like I like to do these things. Let me find a job that fits with my emotional, impulses. You guys have said, research it, plan it, talk to people about it, do the adult grown-up thing. We're going to prepare you to be a successful adult. And that's what our public schools are supposed to be doing. Some succeed better than others. But I think the level of detail that you put into that portion of this is really impressive. I think you're going to be very successful.
I'm so happy to see this for two reasons. One is I was one of the founding parent of Academy for Science and Design. We were the first 15 families. We started in a conference room in a hotel. This was with my kids. And second is my research for the past 14 years at MIT and even as a professor in Japan is how do you teach children to become future entrepreneurs? So this is my field of research, and I've been talking to the board to see how do we change this whole system in New Hampshire to bring this entrepreneurship and innovation right in the beginning. last month I was teaching at Khan Academy and such at Berkeley and such. So I'm so happy to see this. And I truly believe this is something we badly need. And I live right across from. I can't believe when I saw the address and I looked on the map and it was like, I live on Amherst Street.
We'll book you as a seminar leader.
So because I teach in schools across Japan, and I said, how do you bring this into New Hampshire? Exactly, middle schools and innovation, entrepreneurship and such. So yeah, so happy to see this. All the business part comes later, but I think the drive and the initiative is what is more important. And as we know, we'll manage. I'm glad you're starting small, and that knowing the Nashua community, you're going to be oversubscribed.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure. And you're going to be the head of school?
I'm going to be the acting head of school for the first year.
School. And
Yes.
could you share with us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so for the past 18 years, I've worked in public education, 4 years at Nate School, and then 14 years prior at the middle school in Bedford in special education. Prior to my education career, I spent a little over 20 years running my own contracting business. So I know that taught me that you don't know everything and you need good people around you to make things successful. And prior to that, I was a machinist at GE and Hookset. And back during the Gulf War, and was building engines for the Seahawk and Black Hawk helicopters. So that's my background.
This last week must have been a hard one for you. Yeah. So I asked this question because out of all the folks you listed that are on your board, you are the educator.
Yes, and what I've done, as Eric pointed out earlier, is I've.
No. I mean,
People listening.
So Nathan is also on the board as a board member.
Yeah.
Just not a titled board member.
okay.
Yeah.
My concern is that your potential board members, it's impressive. You're checking all the boxes of things that prior been a big concern of ours, which Jim listed. But my concern is it's still a school.
Yep.
And that there's philosophical implications to being a school, and that's different than running a business.
So if I could just interject, so Mr. Fellman was a teacher at Bedford. I believe you had my oldest in your class.
I think I did. So I did.
You
Yeah,
can.
no, I think
No,
he's out of Bedford.
I'll pitch my resume. So I did 20 years in Bedford. I started out as a paraprofessional in the English language learner program, and then did a bunch of degrees in education and became an assistant principal ultimately in Bedford. Left and did a year in curriculum in Milford during the pandemic, which was I think it was a struggle for all of us, right? And particularly in education, right? And so then had this idea of the one thing that we saw out of the pandemic was good relationships with kids. And so I launched a private school after that, and then had some personal challenges with cancer that I'm not going to go into. And I'm sitting here before you today, which is a miracle. But this kind of grew out of my experience and Gino's experience and wanting in Nashua to be able to provide something that the Nashua community needs, which is an education that's unlike the big city system of Nashua, but also doesn't cost what the dairy field costs or what other big private schools cost. And the way to do that in the New Hampshire structure is with a charter school, because they're strong, innovative public schools that can do new things. And so a lot of the philosophy and background comes from me and my background in education. Before I got sick, I was ABD at UNH with an education leadership and policy studies degree. My research focus is teacher compensation and labor relations in education. So I've got a lot of background in that. And I'm kind of downplaying because I'm getting back to my day job at my nonprofit, non-public school that you guys all approve separately. And so I sort of downplayed by that, but as a board perspective, I bring that.
And also, just to say that I mentioned that I'm the acting chairman until school opens. I intend to step down from the board and make space for, we need parents on the board, we need other educators on the board. We're talking about the board has expressed getting well through this grant period to maximize the grant to start the school as well as possible.
You just real quick, you just touched on something that's also pretty important for the board composition. And that's a diverse board between parents and non-parents. Because as you can imagine, the parents are wanting, well, it's a wonderful balance between parents and non-parents on a board, and having that appropriate balance, not skewed one way or the other, will help to keep things going very objectively forward.
We're really well aware of that, just recognizing until you have parents, you can't figure out who can be on the board from the parents, so.
Understood.
So with the school being in an office building, what's the plan for athletics and physical wellness?
So we do have outdoor space that we can use. But 10 minutes down the road from us is the Y. And once we're approved, I plan on going talking to them, because I'm pretty sure during the week and the early day times, their field space there is available. They have basketball courts, they have indoor field space. And part of our charter includes, or part of our grant includes a couple of passenger vans, so we'd be able to transport the kids back and forth.
I noticed this is next to the Nashua Airport.
Yep.
We just had a group in here not too long ago that's dedicated to teaching high school students and how to, they build their own plane.
Yep.
And then they fly it at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So you gotta consider looking at that.
One of the things we're very excited about is the proximity to Nashville Community College too, and all of those
Yep,
programs.
yep.
So a lot of the way we're building out the entrepreneurial curriculum is, we've got an 80-20 rule. There's sort of 20% that you have to know, and 80% that we really should be still following the child, even in high school. And we sort of have that flipped in the big system, where we say 100% you need to know until you're a senior, and then you get a couple of electives. And so we're really excited about that proximity to all of these opportunities, including internships. Gino's son has a relationship with a bakery down the road, where we've already started preliminary discussions about, what would that look like if we have kids that are interested in culinary arts, So it's those outside of it's really a school that is in the community and part of the community. That's the concept, from that perspective.
And I think you're gonna, so one of the things that it's in our rules for public school districts, traditional districts, is that they are required to reach out and create partnerships in the local community. And again, some are more successful than others. And running a school district so often doesn't leave you enough time to really cultivate and build those. But what we see with charter schools is that tends to be a pretty big focus of charter schools. And it's nice to see that you guys have that. The airport's a great opportunity, and just where you're located, there's so many businesses that you're going to be able to develop partnerships with. And Nashua is going to become, so you got ASD right down the road, you guys, there's Gate City, which is now in Merrimack. So you got an art school, a tech school, and an entrepreneurship school, all very close to each other. We've got a couple other charter schools in that. Wellhart is nearby. That's a pretty robust set of options in a very short drive, which we used to think, meaning this board in way back when charter schools were first getting started, used to think that the way to do it was to space charter schools out and really focus on putting them in all these different parts of the state. And while we still strive to have charter schools located to fill needs, what research has shown around the country is that once you get a sort of critical mass of charter schools around a population center, you start to see really magical things happen, not only in those charter schools, but also in the traditional public schools. So I think this could be really good for not just for the students who go to your school, but for Nashua as a whole in the long run. Very excited about it.
A report came out today about the importance of recess. And that in excess of 45 minutes is optimal.
Yep.
So the question earlier was about your campus. You will ultimately have 60 kids in your primary school. What facilities will you have outside for 60 kids?
Yeah, so it's the Birch Pond office space is the proposed location. And so it's 8,000 square feet on the first floor. So it's got its own private entrances and exits. And it is around Birch Pond. So there's a pond and a 5-acre space, including, plenty of areas to walk, both paved and unpaved out through nature. And so there's lots of outdoor opportunities. We are still in New Hampshire though. So the out of doors is not always nice. And one of the interesting things about this space is I have a very good relationship with the landlord there, and there's additional space to move into and to acquire, including 2,000 square feet upstairs directly above the current space that could be used for athletic equipment and doing a sort of indoor gym space where kids could get physical activity even when it's snowy and rainy outside.
Yeah, so is this where the Russian School of Math was?
So it's that's behind us across the water
Okay,
from
across
us.
the
Yeah. So it's it's 3-story building and there's an east and a west building that's right there abutting 101A. So it's right on 101A.
Yeah, indoor, I helped this international school in Tokyo set up their school on the 18th and 19th floor of a building. The whole school is in 2 floors. And it's all the gym and games and everything is indoors. Okay, of course, they don't have space outside, and do you have a maker lab running out of?
I'm sorry.
A maker lab?
Maker Lab, yes. So we don't call it that. We actually have an internal term we've been using. It's called microfacturing. So we have this idea that kids will build products in the entrepreneurial program. And so if, in the budget is 3D printers and Glowforge machines and the type of stuff that is a little bit better than consumer, like sort of consumer level, but sort of small business level. So the highest level of Cricut machines. Think of that, is what's in our budget.
I'd like you to invite you to the first robotics center on 18th and 19th when I'll be running a maker program.
Oh, awesome. 18th, 19th this month.
In 2 weeks, 10 days. So yeah, so makeup space is absolutely important for, especially for innovation based.
Raj, did you go to an entrepreneurial high school by any chance?
No, not at all.
We did nothing like that.
I had nothing. I wish, as you said, I wish I created the whole thing because what I missed in school. So that's why
I created the whole thing for what my kids are missing.
Well, I read your application and I was getting more and more excited. I told Rob, this is for you, man. You gotta check this
I'd love to
application out.
help you with anything you need.
Thank you.
This is
We will take
absolutely. I can't have it in so zoomed in that I can.
One last question. I'm a yes, by the way. I like what you guys are doing. Don't take any of my questions other than the way I intend them, which is
He's a
curiosity.
taskmaster.
One of your board members is an educator, correct?
Two. So
Two, I'm sorry. I apologize. Well, yes, but I just want to make sure, is any of your board members who are educators also teaching at the school, which could cause conflict?
No.
Thank you. That's all I've seen that before and it gets a little sticky sometimes.
Yeah, that was actually, I caught that in your application that they made sure that no teachers in the charter, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember here, in the charter, no one teaching at the school will be on the board.
Yeah, no one that has any chance of financial remuneration, whatever, compensation in any way, will be serving on the board. There's total separation between the paid employees and the governance structure.
And again, that's one of the details where when I just kept going through the application going, thinking from experience, check, like you guys said, and I know that the team has worked with you in the comment section of the application. There were things that they pointed out that you guys fixed, but by the time you got it done, I think it's probably the most thorough, well thought out, well detailed application I can remember reading. It's very good. Yeah.
Just, I did have some concerns about facilities, but I think you've addressed that. Because I was just looking at, you had 6 classrooms, 3 large and 3 smaller ones. But you do have like the growth plan by the
There's an
sound.
additional 2,000 square feet. So it's a total of almost 10 now that some of this has evolved since that was submitted, but we've got a really great relationship with this landlord. He has I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
So there was mention about possibly using the upstairs as like, for physical activities thing. Obviously you want to look at the structure and think about sound or any implications between the floor levels because you don't want to upset the academic event. The other piece, the great part I love is your entrepreneurship, mostly with the demographic that you serve.
Yeah.
I think that's exceptional what you're doing. And I also love the part of mentioning what you mentioned in here about AI and limiting it because Montessori is about exploring and self-guided, instruction as such. But the bigger piece, I just read a book called Digital Deception. And I would encourage you to take a look at that. I think it's gonna be right along the lines of your concerns, making sure that there's a lot of hidden things going on relative to AI and computerized education, that children are missing out on a lot of fundamentals.
Yeah, and I think when you go through the application, the way they use AI, I thought was just incredibly well designed.
I see it.
It was clearly they thought out. We've had this conversation with other charter schools before. And you guys really nailed the difference between replacing learning with AI and using AI as a tool to learn. And I was glad to see that you've already thought that through and you got a plan for that. It was very well organized. Motion?
I move the State Board of Education approve the charter application for Montessori Academy for Entrepreneurs Chartered Public School.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congrats, guys.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you in the, let's say, spring of 28.
Yeah,
And hear how it's
absolutely.
going.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I look forward to seeing your graduates open their businesses. That's
We do too.
gonna be fun. All right, guys, it's 5 till 11. You want to take a quick break? Sure.
And the application was under 150 pages.
It was relatively tight for an application. I think that goes into their organization. There was not a lot of excess verbiage.
Yeah.
You're the next.
Very concise.
They seem like a bunch of engineers.
So I think I'm happy to, what do you guys think? You want to take it now or wait? I mean, but we've got to learn everywhere application here.
But did we skip over the basic academic skills? It's
That's a public hearing.
It's a.
So it's
Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
12:30 hearing.
Ah.
It's 12:30. We gotta wait till 12:30. We have a while to go. We probably should have scheduled it earlier. It's fast as this meeting.
You never know.
So do you guys feel like you want to break now or do you want to take this?
I'm not take that.
Oh, you want to take one?
Oh, I don't care.
I'll wait, I'll do it later.
I'm good.
I'll
I'll
do
do it.
Okay. Okay, so we'll do, let's play music and make art. Very cute name.
Dean Setzer from the Office of Learn Everywhere, here to introduce Jay and this application for Let's Play Music and Make Art. Yeah, I'm Jay Latula, and the one of the co-founders, and I'm the one of the founding directors.
Well, I just want to ask if anybody has any questions. I didn't have questions because we have had multiple music schools on here and whether you guys were just meticulous in your application or Dean helped you, yours is so much more comprehensive and thorough and detailed than the other ones have been, that I didn't really have any questions. So.
I'm just curious what you think your reception will be and what have you done to get that sense?
Yeah, so we actually have about over 1,000 students, and we have a good portion of high schoolers, and I've just casually mentioned to our teachers and to the students, and it's really been received with a lot of enthusiasm, and I can see us really taking advantage of this. I think it's a really great service that we'd be able to offer to the kids.
So you have 1,000 students in what geographic?
So we have a location in Derry, Bedford, Merrimack, and Manchester and Hudson.
The location of Bedford's just opening.
It just opened. We're moving some people from Manchester over to Bedford, but it just opened a couple weeks ago.
Where in Bedford?
In Pine Tree Place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another sort of music art school in town. I didn't realize you guys were there yet, so.
Yeah, I think, we're close to probably the one you're referring to, yeah.
So as the chair said, like it's exceptional application. I do think we have seen other successful programs come through and be like, then they don't, not a ton of credit comes out of it. So I do think it's the partnership or how we, like, so I'm just wondering like how close of a partnership we have to help people understand, hey, you can get credit for this.
Yeah. We're going to be very active in promoting this, and I can see a lot of people getting credit through this. This is something that actually we're really excited about, and we're gonna promote it quite a bit.
In your other programs, do you find a participation rate in each category equally, or are more students musicians, or are more students artists, or what have you seen in your experience?
Yeah,
thus far?
we only have art at our Derry location just because of space. So we only have about 50 or 60 art students. So how many arts? Yeah, we probably have like maybe like 8 or 10 high school art students. So that's probably what you see with that. And then the rest of it's music. And we actually have we have parent and child programs like newborn through 3, and then we have something we call Ready to Rock, which is 4 and 5, and they start getting introduced to instruments and playing and musical activities. And then from there on, we combine private lessons with programming. And we're very strong in the programming. We have music festival that we participate in Boston with other music studios from around the New England region. We take kids out to perform a lot. We do quite a bit.
And how do you help kids get access to instruments?
Well, in terms of we actually do offer rental instruments. But in terms of if there was somebody with a financial need, we would work with them. Yeah.
What are your most popular instruments?
Piano. Piano's number 1, guitar is number 2. And then I would say
ukulele rank.
ukulele's in there. We have a few ukulele students too.
No, I
Yeah.
want to know where bagpipe ranks, because
We actually have bagpipe students too, believe it or not.
Yeah, I'd like to know what you would recommend for me to get for my granddaughter who I intend on starting to play the piano. What should I buy?
Oh, it's wonderful. So what you want is you want
Steinway.
yeah, Steinway is great.
I have a Yamaha at home, but she's in
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Well, even a 61 key, a touch sensitive keyboard is, because if you're talking about keyboards, no matter what piano you play on, they're all different touch. Even two pianos that are the same brand, same years, there's still a different touch. So you have to adjust your touch. Yeah.
Do you have a tuner that you really like?
Yeah, actually, yeah. And actually, I do use Ed Bordelot from Piano Arts in Hooksett. Yeah, he's in Bedford, actually.
Oh, so because I was going to say, when it comes to piano, fortunately, you don't need to spend any money, because all you got to do is go on Facebook Marketplace and find
No, I
500
have a-
free pianos.
Free pianos, yeah. That's true too.
And it's a strong
You're all
back,
set.
and a strong back to move them.
Yeah, but they're free, right? So
Yeah.
you just got to pay to tune them.
Yeah.
So in your application, you mentioned a music festival, and you just mentioned again, is that the music festival you're talking about in Boston?
Yes,
So
yes.
where and when?
So we've been holding it. It's actually at the Westin in Waltham, and it's in the beginning of April. And I would say there's 800 to 1,000 participants, and they're all under 22. Well, there's some adult categories as well, but yeah.
Do you do
We've been
the
doing
Mo-
that for over 60 years.
Do you do the Mozart program?
We have what's called Little Mozarts. And it's actually a really fun program. And again, that's a 4 and 5-year-old program. Yeah.
That's great.
And instructors, any of it online or is it all in person?
We do have online as well. But those are usually one-on-one private. It's sometimes, let's say, somebody's out of the area where they can't really access the lessons easily.
Yep.
Maybe they might come in once in a while.
Yep.
Or if somebody's sick, or if it's a snow day, we'll do it that way.
It's certainly in your application, and just correct me if this is the right impression, that you basically structured Going Everywhere to sort of map to how you already teach
Exactly.
music. So that's what gave me a sense that you guys really had some great structure in here.
Yeah.
Because you're mapping it to how you already teach, but also how you already measure progress. And I thought that was a great strength of your program.
Yeah.
Because yours is very, from a layman's terms, regimented, right? So you have certain targets that you're getting these students to
Yes.
measure their progress, and that's already, it's not like going and taking a private guitar lesson with some 20-year-old who taught himself how to play
Exactly.
Aerosmith. You're, you guys have real music instruction built into this.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a great strength.
The
Thank
breadth
you,
of, the
thank
breadth of opportunity,
Yeah.
it just,
Yeah.
I found myself reading more and more, and the
Yeah.
depth, the depth of the
Thank you.
instruction is.
Yeah.
So to speak on that, actually, we're now into the fourth generation of music educators in our family. My grandparents started music studios in the Eastern Seaboard in New England, starting in the 30s. And my parents started in 1960. They started their own studios and took over their parents' studios. And now my wife and I are third generation, and one of my sons and my daughter is in the studio as well. Yeah.
Are you competing against each other or are you
No,
working together?
no. Yeah. You know, my parents are retired. Yeah.
You could create a whole course around the musical styles that your family has had to learn how to teach over that time. I mean, you've got almost 100 years now.
My grandmother was the first woman manager for Wurlitzer.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So you're going from swing, I assume,
Yeah.
and like Dixieland, and big band, all the way through the jazz catalog to rock and pop. And,
Yep.
Wow, that's
You name it.
yeah,
It's,
that's really
yeah.
cool. All right.
Well, I move that the State Board of Education approve the Let's Play Music and Make Art and have a lot of fun. LLC Learn Everywhere initial application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming before us.
All right.
We look forward to seeing the reports of
And we,
hundreds of kids getting.
Well, you are.
All right.
You
and we,
will.
and we have had guest players here.
Yeah, we.
Just saying.
we're
Bring a
open
baby
for-
Grant in
we're
here.
open for-
Bagpipes, you know.
Oh,
all kinds of-
Well, yep.
All right, well,
Well,
thank you.
thank you very much.
All right, now we can take a break. How about that? All right, we'll take 5. Be right back. All right, so we are up to these rulemaking proposals. We have the 4 initial proposals. And let's take the first one. Special ed advanced endorsements for intellectual development and disabilities. And emotional behavioral.
Yes.
Anything you guys want to kick us off with?
We have members of the PSB here and from the subcommittee, I think. And I just want to point out again that these are all expiring in August. So that's why they were all brought today. So I will let them go ahead and go through the changes.
Okay,
I'm Dr. Andra Hall. I've been on the PFB for, I believe this is my 5th year. Just crazy. But previous to that, I did work on subcommittees, so that's how I got to know what the PSB was. So in 2017, I had worked on these standards in particular. That's how I got into right here today. As was mentioned earlier, these 2 endorsements and then 2 endorsements that you're hearing after in 2 will we were one big committee that worked together. We had representation from the department, we had representation from K-12, current practitioners, we had representation from higher education, which is always helpful when you can get all of those players at the table to have that conversation. It was, and license, people that hold this license and have been practicing with this license. So it was really, it was a very great engaged group. It, with, I mean, I think if you took our number of years of experience, it would be in the hundreds, because that was the level of knowledge that we had at the table. It was really a great experience. We met many times over the course of the spring because we did know that these were up for expiration and we needed to get it done quickly. We a lot of what, and the other piece of having this one committee work on these 4 different standards is that there's consistency between these standards because they are all advanced endorsements. So there was some common language that we developed and then brought into all of the standards to make sure that there was some consistency across the board on what it looked like. One of the big things that we did was the language used to have, each of the categoricals like repeated like numerous times throughout the document. And so if we just moved it to the stem of that, it allowed us to take out all that repeating language. So to make it more user friendly. We did leave in some language when we felt it was really important to call out that this is specifically for kids with intellectual and developmental disabilities or specifically for emotional and behavioral disabilities. I think that the other thing is that a lot of times we tried to make sure that they were aligned with language from IDEA. So sometimes there was not language in there that was skirting around, but not specific to the language of IDEA. So we tried to bring in as much of that into this, which is the individuals with development or no. No, sorry.
Individuals, disabilities, education.
Yeah. The other thing is that these current standards were built in 2007. So the world has changed since 2007, especially where technology is involved. And so we wanted to make sure that these standards, because they will be for 10 years, are broad enough to allow for whatever happens in the next 10 years to be part of these standards. So we did broaden a lot of the language where it was more specific in 2007 when technology was in its infancy. I mean, very much in its infancy compared to where we are today. So we did that piece of it. We also wanted to make sure that it allowed for the things that are really important to this population, especially with the intellectual and developmental disabilities. When you think about that big transition into adulthood, there's not a lot of they are moving from a system where they're entitled to services to a system where they have to kind of fight for those services. So giving them and their parents skills to be able to make that transition. So a lot of it was based on advocacy, really focusing on that transition process for kiddos.
Is that in addition to what existed? Or has that always been there?
It wasn't as defined as we wanted to have a more of a focus on those areas because it wasn't as clearly defined in the old standards. So we wanted to make sure that we really brought that there. It was there, but it wasn't as robust as we wanted it to be. Yes. Assistive technology is another part of the field that has really grown in the last, since 2007. It has broken down so many barriers for so many of our kiddos. So we wanted to make sure that there was a good focus on that. And collaboration is a huge piece of this field because without that collaboration with all of our partners and outside agencies and all those pieces, none of those transitions or work-based experiences and all of that needs to happen through that collaboration. And then there was a legislation, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, put in place that we had to work with families to talk them through guardianship and if they were needed to register to vote, how they go about that process. So we wanted to make sure that that was reflected in these standards as well.
Yeah, on that one, I noticed that that's in there.
Yeah.
It's on page 12. And I'm not as familiar with the law as you probably are, but my recollection is that was for students who are 17 going on 18 or 18 and above, right?
Yeah.
So I think that should be spelled out in here so that we're not talking about, it doesn't mention the age. And I think we probably should say something like that for students who are voting age, consistent with the statute. We could cite the
I was
statute.
just gonna say, if we want to cite the statute.
Yeah, I think that's an important one because
Okay.
I think otherwise it gives the impression that everybody with an IEP is going to get a voter registration talk, and that's not
Yeah, actually, that is the case. That it is every kiddo that.
every kid in
It's every
elementary
kid that
school.
has an IEP, yeah. That was the way the new law was written, was that we
Was that
had
the
to
state
have
statute or was that the?
state, yeah, and now there's actually a box in Nessus when the kids, which is our state IEP system, is that when the kids turn 16, we have to check off a box that we've had this conversation with
process is
families and that whatever level of support they need on, some kiddos might need goals on being able to identify their address and all those things so that they could register to vote. So it's individualized from there, but it is required for all kids with IEPs now.
So it's preparatory. It's getting them prepared
Yeah.
for it, make
Right.
sure they have the skill
Yeah.
sets to do it.
Just, I think we should double check that. It's my recollection, it was for students 17 and older. But I could misremember
We have
it.
to provide them the opportunity to go and
Yeah.
vote.
We don't have to, we have to provide them with the skills to be ready to go and vote. So we have to, whether that's helping them understand the process of getting a
Right.
non-driver's license ID or, whatever.
Sure, I just want to make sure we're following what the intent of law was and not
Yeah.
teaching elementary school kids about their voting. And if we don't, that doesn't seem to make sense to me, that we'd be teaching this at any age. But whatever the statute requires, we have to do. So I just
Right.
want to make sure.
Yeah, we can add in I believe it's 16, but I would have to go back to the.
I just would encourage us to look at 16 as,
Yes,
given the fact that we do have to do some preparation and getting sometimes those, non-driver license for these kids can take some time, and getting the families to understand. So we can't just do it at 17. So I think we should, if.
Again, we have to do whatever the statute says. That's all my point is. So whatever the statute says is what we should do. I'm just trying to make sure we cover that in the rule and we're not going beyond. And I don't know if it's 16 or close to 18 or 17 or like, I hear what you're saying. If practically we want to start early, but I just want to make sure we're consistent with whatever the law says. That's all.
Right. Yeah, I think that we didn't include the age, because the assumption is that an elementary kid isn't, any elementary kid isn't going to register to vote. And,
Right. Sometimes when we write a rule and then it loses the context and 5 or 6 years later, somebody's reading the rule and they're like, oh, you got an IEP, I got to teach you about registering to vote. That does happen. Like these things lose context all the time. And so that was my only thing in this particular, was just making sure that that's
It makes sense.
nailed down. Because
yes.
oftentimes you guys know this really in great detail and you're like, oh, we got to put that in there. But a teacher who's
Yeah.
coming in new 6 years from now won't have that context and will just read it and go, oh, okay. I gotta teach about voter registration.
Yes. It's page 12.
which
So I think I
On
did-
the page, well, in the.
It is,
Page 12.
it was a couple of years ago. I
um,
think it was 2021, they passed that statute.
Yeah, it is 22. I have it pulled up.
Yeah, so it's. Anyway, just whatever you guys link to the statute and whatever it
mhm.
Yeah.
tells us to do, we're happy to do.
Yeah, it says 17 years or older, of age or older, so we'll reflect that in.
And I hear you about 16. I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I just want to make sure we're not. I can't amend a statute, so.
Appreciate that.
As much as we might practically go, we should really start that at 16. Maybe we could reach out to Jelcar and say, hey, to prepare this, can we start it at 16? I'm not opposed to that. But I just want to make sure we don't get deemed for that.
Yeah, I think that it's written that way because there are some kids that maybe don't need it that much planning, so but that doesn't mean that a team couldn't do it earlier or start that process.
Very, very possible, right? So, okay.
And oftentimes they're starting to talk about transition process when by age 14.
Oh, yeah.
15, so.
Yeah, 14, 15,
Yeah.
that's totally normal, like certain kids are ready to do that, so.
And then on the emotional behavioral disorder, we did want to make sure that it was reflective, that it was broad enough to encompass all of what could be underneath that category, which is pretty expansive. We wanted to make sure that there was the connection.
What page are you on, by the way? Just so I can scroll.
This is the next one. So this is the,
50744.
Starts on page 19.
I don't
This
have
is a
your,
number.
I don't have your same number. It's like, I about page what?
So I thought we were just on 8A, special advance endorsements. So we're going on another one?
No, so these two
No,
were
we're
put
on-
together. We had two advanced endorsements that were lumped together, and then in a little bit,
Okay,
we'll
so
have.
for us, it was C.
Well, so I just want to, for our purposes, I want to focus on each A, B, C, D, E separate.
Okay.
Right, so I'm on A.
A, yes, this is A,
It's 50742 and 50744.
4. Yeah.
Intellectual development and emotional behavioral.
So I do have a question before we move on.
Sure.
On page 3, which is rule language change 4, D3. In the new language under 3A, it's where you haven't read practices and interventions. I certainly don't take exception to that. I'm a strong believer of current evidence-based research, but is there a possibility we're excluding all other evidence-based research not associated with practices and interventions? So I guess what I'm getting at is if we said something like, with emphasis on, with current evidence-based research with emphasis on practices and interventions. I guess there's a whole, I feel like we're excluding a lot.
You're on 4.
3A.
4B.
4D3.
Oh, okay, I included that.
So
Is that a 442 or 44?
it says rule language change 4, D3, and then under it,
A.
it would be A.
So currently,
Align.
it currently says align individual education programs with current evidence-based research. The change is with current evidence-based research practices and interventions. They're adding practices and interventions there. And I think your question is that limiting it? Shouldn't we be using evidence-based research for everything? Right?
And I have no problem with identifying practices and interventions. I think it's great and with emphasis on it. I just want to make sure we're not,
I see what you're saying.
that's all.
I think what we were trying to do is realize that in day-to-day work in the field, sometimes it's not
It's practices and interventions.
interventions, so we wanted to make sure that's inclusive. So I am not, I've done the rules since 1990, so I've done every one that's ever been for the endorsements. And, we see growth, and I guess I just always don't want to miss out on what a young teacher coming in might have that says, hey, this is the best way to that I've seen this particular child communicate. So to expand it, that would be fine, but I don't want to forget the practices and.
Totally agree. And I always say this just because, I attended the UNH Institute on Disability Leadership Program.
Right.
And some of the students in that were there, they were going to the graduate. I was explaining some of the issues I had as a parent, and they were bringing me research papers. And those papers were very influential in me advocating my son. It wasn't so much practice interventions, it was just
The data.
data. So that's why I bring it up.
I wonder if there's actually a comma that's missing here.
There
If
is.
it's research, comma, practices and interventions. I think that's might be the problem, is that there's a
That would
comma
fix-
missing there.
And then
How about we edit his proposal with current evidence-based research and current practices and interventions, or current evidence-based practices? I like the evidence-based. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I would agree.
So you want to just add and after research and evidence-based practices and interventions.
Added.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good Definitely.
And then on the next.
It's
page-
gonna have to happen in a couple of them though, because we use that term, a couple of the ones going down.
All right.
And I think we get to the, oh, yeah, so on the next page, typical and was struck out, and that's on change 5, B4, B. And I feel like typical in this has everything to do with an inclusive classroom environment. And I just, I feel like, I feel like it should state it, design and coordinate typical and specialized supports in the classroom. Because they need to, they have to, you're talking about the possibility of being in a regular classroom. And they have to coordinate the two together, typical and specialized. Not just specialized, because that leads me to think it's not an inclusive setting.
I want to say that the conversation was around that, this is specifically for that advanced endorsement in IDD. And so then it's the specialized piece that they bring to the table. But the typical piece is within their general special ed, because remember that in order to get this advanced endorsement, they have to have their general special ed first. So they need to be a generalist to meet all kids' needs in all settings. But then this is specifically, and I didn't take it as that, but I can see how it can be taken as that.
And in our conversation, we didn't take it as that, but I could see now how you're
Yeah.
saying. And it was a conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's been through everything typical and special ed, but we really were trying, I think the curse here was we were trying to get it to, so that it was an addition to the general, and maybe we went too
I'm
far.
gonna take it the wrong way. I'm not asking you to explain yourself, really.
Yeah, no, but I
I
think,
understand where, I know
I
where
think
you're
that's
coming
where the problem.
I know
We
where
did
you're
have
coming
a pretty robust conversation around this.
from. I'm just trying to give you my.
Yeah.
No,
from my
I
lens,
appreciate
how
that. I
I
appreciate
kinda
that.
see.
But that's good context for us to hear that, in your view, typical is already covered in a pre-endorsement they have to get this one.
Yeah.
Does that satisfy your concern, or?
We can put it back.
I
in
have
there.
no problem, we
Yeah.
have no problem putting it back in, because it was a discussion we had in depth too. But as we want to be able to work with all children, like you're saying, in an inclusive model.
And then lastly on this one, I appreciate the replacement of graduation with transition. Unless the laws change, since I've been engrossed in it. Age 18, oftentimes I've heard the terrible stories of parents and students being tricked into graduation, and then they're out for 3 years until age 21. The services. So appreciate the.
Well, and that was also that piece of reflecting what the
You kinda touched-
IDA says.
You touched on it a little bit earlier. And a lot of parents don't know that.
And the nice thing with the new case that just went through with DHHS and this, and now they're responsible for kids no matter what.
Oh, they are,
Yeah, so that's,
19 to 21?
yeah,
Okay.
so I agree with you, that's why we left it in there, but also the case law just came through, so.
So for that typical, just a. Are you guys okay with just leaving that in?
Yeah,
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
talking
Yeah,
about
that's
the one
fine.
up in B.
Yeah.
it's gonna have to put back in others.
Yeah, we can amend it now, and as we approve this, the amendment will be in the approved proposal. Anything else on this one? Anybody else have anything on A here?
Well, I haven't gone to the second part, which is
Okay.
the EBD side of things.
Yeah.
This language was very narrowing. The language was very specific and didn't allow us to really meet. Yes, very restrictive in the way that it was written. So we did a lot of expanding the language to broader terms versus the specific, like, different things that could be. So that was a lot of the language changes that we did throughout this document. And we.
Like styles to preferences.
Yes, yeah, so we did go through and we changed that language of learning styles to learning preferences, because that's the new
Language.
research-based language that's being given to us. Again, a focus on self-advocacy, because a lot of these students aren't going to receive many, if any, services once they reach adulthood. So building their self-advocacy skills was a huge piece of this document, because that's how we prepare them to be adults in this world. We did I have different, so 5, if you were on page 19, it would be 24. 24 for you, maybe?
The change 5,
Yeah,
so that is our page 22.
22, okay.
And
Plus. We did change diversities to individual differences, just to be more specific with that language and less of that, catchphrases that were in here. We put in terminology like least restrictive environment to reflect the language of IDEA. We took out language about the cultural and linguistic environments because we felt like that was too narrowing. It didn't allow us to kind of whatever environment they're in, meet their needs. Like I said, a lot of this language we changed because we wanted to be broad enough to go for the next 10 years and not be restrictive to what is currently available to us.
Yeah, that I think came across as I was reading it, that you guys were trying to be less restrictive and make sure we had the ability to cover everything we needed to cover in a bit of a broader, and that's how I took it.
And section 9, professional practices, we had, as a committee, come up with common language between all of these standards and put them into all the standards. So the language is reflected between the 4, well, actually 3. You'll see that we just slashed 1, but and then in section 10, we took out severe because we didn't want just severe behaviors to be dealt with. And so oftentimes if you intervene when it's less severe, it will not become severe. So we didn't want it to be restricting in that way. We added in courts because that is a huge piece of this disability categories that oftentimes we might be court involved.
29 of 36.
That was an important skill to have for this particular advanced endorsement. That was our big
Question
changes.
on change 9.
Yeah.
507-44B7. Under I, the language before the change says involve the individual and family in setting instructional goals and monitoring progress, and you remove that. I'm just curious the rationale for removing the individual and family and setting instructional goals and monitoring progress.
I want to say that we had it taken care of in another one.
It was down farther.
The explanation may be.
We moved it to another area under.
I want to see what's in the collaboration that we moved it to 10.
Yeah, I think is it H?
It's for meaningful collaboration, school personnel, community members when integrating individuals
Yeah, so we moved that concept into throughout section 10, which is the collaboration piece, which felt like
Makes sense. It's collaboration.
it felt like it fit there more than where it was currently. So there's a number of different ones within 10 that talk about that collaboration with the families.
Yep, the crossed out sections were redundant, taking care of other parts.
The end of E, describe the components of the community culture that promote effective communication, collaboration with individuals, emotional, behavioral learning needs, families, school personnel. Is that it?
So there's a couple ones within that section 10. There is the
30. Yeah, I'm on page 30.
It's E, there's a piece with the collaboration with families. F has a piece of collaboration with families. And then H, the new H.
That's under what section?
N.
Yeah.
So the way E reads though, it's like describe the components of the community culture that promote effective collaboration. Whereas I think what Jim was saying before is like concrete skill of collaborating with individuals and families.
Well, I think if I got your point, Jim, in 7, I is a direct imperative to involve the individual and family in setting instructional goals in monitoring progress. And that's how the IEP is done.
Yeah.
And when it's moved down to 10, I don't think that language is exactly the same. So there may be an opportunity to sort of redraft it or incorporate that imperative in there to involve the family. So, H, for example, you're coordinate and provide professional development and when appropriate supervision, et cetera, for family members. Other mentions of the family, describe the components of the community culture, but there's not that imperative to involve the family from the beginning is not relocated that I can see, at least not from 7 to 10.
And it's specific in 7 about involving the family with instructional planning.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a general.
I think it was monitoring progress. That was the mistaking. Just added it back in.
All right,
Yeah.
adding it back in, I
think it was the monitoring progress piece of that that is not the family's responsibility. That is truly the professional's responsibility. So I think that if we took out that section but added back in, involve the family, the individual and family in setting instructional goals.
Take out monitoring.
Yeah. And take out monitoring progress.
And leave it in 7 where it is, just.
Yeah.
leave it in 7, but I'd leave it in 10 too, because I think.
Oh, yeah, all the stuff.
All
in
the
10
stuff,
needs to
we
be
had,
added.
we really beefed up 10 because there wasn't a lot of.
Yeah, it's much easier. But yeah.
In a good way.
Right, some of it we made it leaner and some of
Yeah,
it
yeah.
we made it easier.
Oh, we had to, it was very lack.
Yeah.
But I think, right, so you're just saying add it back. Don't strike it from 7.
Don't strike it, but strike the last
And
and
monitoring
monitoring progress.
Okay.
Because that is really the professional's responsibility. And then it becomes the communication through the program. And remember, this is that advanced endorsement, so there are requirements of the generalist to communicate with the family and and progress notes and all those pieces, so.
Well, but I would push back a little bit and say monitoring progress, the family. I mean, I know that that's the educator's job is to monitor progress, but I don't see why you wouldn't involve the family in that in speaking from the standpoint of a parent, right? I'm just a little concerned about taking it out. And because I think when you have a kid with an IEP, sometimes the parents can catch things on the progress monitoring that the IEP coordinator doesn't always catch, the team doesn't always catch. And I think and the parent can ask questions about progress and is this intervention getting us the results we want? And I think the parents, sometimes they're not always good advocates, but I think oftentimes they can be. And
I think our thought during the committee meetings was that we wouldn't expect parents to keep progress.
Sure.
This is us presenting the progress to them. And then the parent can have obviously feedback on that progress, information. We wouldn't want a team to say, or a specialist in this case to say, you must do these things to help us monitor this progress. And that was part of our conversation.
I see.
But I think it should be collaborative, so put it in. But I think that was the conversation. We didn't want teams to say to a parent, you know, these
You have a
behaviors,
requirement.
these behaviors are happening, in particular in this one, these behaviors are happening at home and we want you to monitor that and give us
I hear what you're
feedback on
saying.
that.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
that was our discussion point. It
Yeah.
really need to be the responsibility of the public school to do that. And then the parents can always give input, and that's the collaboration.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, it's a little bit of a delicate balance there. Of saying your job is to monitor the progress. You want parent collaboration or input. You don't want to put the burden of monitoring progress on the parent. I see what you're saying.
And that was our difficult, in particular in this particular
Yeah.
disability, where I know districts I've been called in on those situations and demanded something from the parent, which was inappropriate.
Yeah, and this was a little bit of protection for the parent.
Gotcha.
piece.
Okay.
In this particular
Sure.
categorical, because
Okay. I see that.
it can be in multiple settings.
Yeah.
So are we okay with striking the monitoring progress? And remember, there is the generalist that does have a requirement to collaborate and to provide feedback and monitor the progress. And then
Yeah.
that the whole IEP process should be collaborative and we had changed that whole section in the generalist to really focus on that IEP process and involving the parents in it. So
My concern in this particular, these endorsement is that we don't want people coming in, you're a specialist, you know, because you've done all this extra work, coursework and whatnot. When I go into a meeting, people in learning disability and ED, people think of me as a specialist. I don't want them to be the person demanding things, and that has happened in the past. So I think that's what we were trying to alleviate, that it's collaboration and that as a specialist, you bring your knowledge and your expertise.
I don't understand that you didn't want the specialist to demand things or the family.
No, the specialist to say to a family, can you keep track at home?
Right, gotcha.
So,
No, that makes sense.
so that's what we were trying to make that delicate.
Not put that burden on the
Yeah.
parent, right?
I mean, for certainly there are some cases where the team does decide that collaboration of what's going on at home is, or data collection of what's going on at home is important to the whole picture, but that should be an individual team decision, not a.
No, I don't disagree that you guys don't want to have a situation where the specialist is telling the parent, hey, go do my job, go home and monitor the progress and track and keep a logbook and all that stuff. So we want to avoid that.
Is there room here for a may? I
No,
mean, adding language that says exactly what you just said, just so that I mean, that's empowering in a way. People think that maybe something's not getting touched, that needs to be touched, that language exists.
Or possibly.
I think we put a pen in this and try to
Okay.
come up with something. I mean, maybe we just take monitoring progress out. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I think my concern is that, again, if the years down the road, the educator and the parent are going to read this out of the context of the conversation we had. And so I'd like the parent to be able to advocate for maybe if the parent feels like the progress isn't proceeding enough, the parent needs to be able to advocate for that and say, hey, you know, why are you accepting that my kid's not making progress? Or why isn't my kid making progress? So I want to maintain that sort of advocacy in the parent's role, but certainly avoid what you're saying about dumping a responsibility on the parent to do that, because they shouldn't have to do that. Some parents will, just because that's how they are.
In the general IEP has that component that you described.
The parent input
Parent
piece.
concerns.
And the parent,
General
and the general, I
aspect.
think.
So maybe we can think about how to massage that to get the exact wording we want. But I hear what you're saying. That's a really, really great point.
So as far as the revision, what is standing for now? Pretty-
For adding back involved the.
Okay.
So we'll add back that whole of I, or you guys, can we add back the whole of I with an asterisk to come back to it later?
Yeah, I can put a pin and say that we want to review it. So just put the whole thing back in.
Yeah, I put it all back in and then say, look, let's think about, does it need more massaging?
Sure.
But is this expiring?
This is expired.
It is, but
Yeah,
you have a second.
Once we approve it, the initial proposal.
Okay.
We'll
Correct. You'll have that second, the final proposal will come back to you as well. So that will be an opportunity to relook at it after the public hearing and public comment and determine if there are any additional changes that need to be made.
And another thing to keep in mind, and I'm sure you guys are fully aware of this, is we have a lot of advocates who will be reading through a line by line of this. And if we take out something like that without being able to fully explain it to them, I think some people will take it the wrong way. Some people will take it like I did and think, oh, you're removing the parents from that process, which you're not intending to do. So something we should be aware of.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, I'm okay if you guys want to approve the proposal for A here. I'm going to take them one at a time. I don't want to do it all.
All right, I make a motion to approve the initial proposal for ED 507.42, special education teacher in the area of intellectual development and disabilities,
As amended.
as amended.
Second, what is it?
No, it's.
And-
Two and 4.
Didn't you?
It's
Drew
A,
just say you
everything on
want-
A.
Everything.
Everything on A. So it's 4,
It's
2,
one
and-
proposal, but there's two rule sections.
So
So you want to include them? I thought you
Yes.
said you wanted to separate them.
no, I want to do each.
Okay, as
each
amended
letter.
and ED 507.44, special education teacher in the area of emotional and behavioral disorders.
As
amended.
As amended.
As amended.
All in favor?
Aye. As amended.
Yes. All right. Which brings us to, so we're going to take each letter separately, even if there's 2 rules in the letter. So that's what I'm thinking. Okay, so that takes us to B.
Okay. So I'm Erin Kerr. This, like similar to Andra, this is my 5th year on the PSB. I co-chaired this specific standard special ed teacher in the area of deaf and hard of hearing. We met 4 times this past spring, and the team included those that hold the current licensure are working in the field, as well as staff here from the department. And you'll see similarly, as well as this one, and then in the blind and visual impairment endorsement, the team really felt strongly that we really look at the national standards of the CEC within this specific licensure. So you'll see that the committee, we walked line by line from the current New Hampshire language to the best practices of the national standards, and the team really felt that we needed to use the language of the CEC.
And just to be aware that this endorsement and the deaf and hard of hearing are, although are called
The
advanced endorsements, are not, you are not required to have a generalist before you get this endorsement.
Okay. So would this be example of us basically, we're copy and pasting language from the. Okay, I have lots of questions on this one. So I'm just gonna ask if you can walk me through
Sure.
some of this language. I just, starting on page 1 here. So we got ED 507.43, B1A1, demonstrate understanding of. I wonder if you can walk me through and explain what this sentence means. The effects of the interrelationship among age of identification, type, and etiology, level of hearing, auditory development, and provision of services on the development of individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing.
So it depends on when they are identified, what age they're identified at, what type of learning disability or hearing impairment they're identified with, because there is it's a spectrum of what that could look like, and what was the cause of that hearing impairment, and then how that affects individuals with.
So let's break it down by phrase. The effects of the interrelationship among
Age of identification.
Right.
So when
Just
they
that phrase alone. I take that to mean you have to understand the effects that each of these following factors has on each other. Or
right
on
on
the
the
child.
level of hearing, the auditory development of a child, and the what services need to be provided for that child.
So I think one of the examples that one of the committee members had shared, a 5-year-old that is diagnosed with a hearing impairment, their level of support, their services and instruction would be different or compared to a student who is age 15, has had the, kindergarten through grade 5 instruction in literacy, math. I think that was kind of where they were.
So I think you can look at this a couple of different ways. One is that you want to understand the effect of each of those separate things on the individual who's deaf and hard of hearing. So the effect of the age of identification, so that's the age at which the disability was identified, the type of disability, the etiology, the level of hearing, auditory development, and provision of services. That phrase is not parallel. So just from a grammatical construction, that phrase makes no sense. The level of hearing, auditory development, and the provision of services. So are you saying that they should understand each one of those individually on the effect of the student? Or are you saying they have to understand the interrelationship among all of those things on the development of a student? Or are you saying both?
And say if we add and the interrelationship between each at the end, would it be more clear as far as the individual versus the interrelationship?
Right.
I think the entire sentence is bafflingly constructed. And I don't know how a parent is going to understand what the hell that means. So, and I'm not even sure exactly what you're going for here.
What is interrelationship?
Well, but that's so how these things work together.
Yeah.
So use simple words.
I think what you're saying is you have to demonstrate an understanding of how each one of these things affects the student, and also how the interrelation of each of these things together, whatever combination the student has, affects the child. Would that be the right way to read it?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't want to take a crack right now rejecting that, but I think that sentence just absolutely has to be rewritten, because I don't know how anybody is going to really understand exactly what we mean there. So I've got more. I'm going to try to find each one in the rule so I can point you to it. Okay, so this is page 1. Right under that, so you've got number 4. The impact of exceptionalities on the development of language and learning for individuals who are deaf, hard of hearing, including the ways in which exceptionalities may interact with varying hearing levels, resulting in more complex needs. What are we trying to say there? What is an exceptionality in this context?
Their hearing loss. So whatever level of hearing loss. And then how does that
Whether it's
affect?
mild, moderate, severe.
Yeah. And how does that affect the development of language in that child?
Could we say the impact of their level of hearing loss on the development of language and learning for individuals, including the ways in which a level of hearing loss may interact with varying hearing levels, resulting in, again, that last phrase, may interact with varying hearing levels, resulting in more complex needs, is again a really weak construction. So again, I think what you're trying to say is students who have different levels of hearing loss are going to have different needs. You want the license holder to demonstrate that they understand the effect that those different levels of hearing loss will have on what exactly?
On the development of language.
Of their language.
Development of their language. Okay. Because I don't get that from
And learning.
Okay. May interact with varying hearing levels, resulting in more complex
I think
needs.
that is the confusing piece. I don't know
I don't know
that
what that
that
means.
necessarily has to be there, that piece, because that adds a level of confusion.
It doesn't mean anything.
I mean, it's already understood in this that the complexity is going to vary by
Yeah.
student and
So just changing it to the impact, the level of hearing loss
on the
on the development of language and learning for individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing, and then strike
and then
out.
strike out the rest.
Okay, that's much more clear.
Okay.
Okay. I have 5 more.
Okay.
And then take out general and level of hearing loss.
Okay, if we go down page, still on page 1. Let's find it. Okay, B is, so that was in A 1 through 5. Then we start with B. B says incorporate current theories of spoken and sign language developments of individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing and components of communication competence into programming and planning for students. So as we were talking about with the last rule, why would we incorporate current theories as opposed to evidence-based practices? Current theories might be the latest fad, but we don't know if they work. So why would we do that? We don't do that in the rest of these.
To incorporate evidence-based.
Evidence-based practices, right? Or how would you?
I think that's it.
Yeah, incorporate evidence-based practices of spoken and signed language development of individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing.
And then, okay, so
then-
that's one phrase. And then, and components of communication competence. What does that mean?
So some people in that community have different levels of their ability to communicate with and to receive communication from. So I think that that competence level is based on what level of that receptive
Maybe
and
there's a different
expressive
word for
language, yeah.
competence.
Well, no, but I think it's the components, right? So if what you're saying is, I'm trying to decipher what the meaning of these things are.
Yeah.
If you intend that we're going to incorporate best practices, research-based, evidence-based, so we're not going to go off on trendy theories of spoken and sign language development of individuals, and
How about
that
meet the student
individual's
where they
level
are?
of, is that what you're saying, that individual's level of communication competence?
Yes, right.
Okay, then why don't we say it that way?
How about just meet the student where they are?
The student's level of communication competence into programming planning, right? So I think that's what you're trying to get at.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this statement is basically saying.
But it doesn't say that. You know, it says
Individualize it for them.
components of communication
Yeah.
competence could be, let's look at the dictionary definition of communication competence, break down its components and include those components in there. What it's not saying is that individual student's level of communication competence. It's just what I think you're going at.
Yes.
Who's the intended audience for these?
This is for higher ed to teach new teachers.
So that's the only audience that will ever review this or
Well,
use it as a guiding principle.
Yes.
So
And
never,
people
never be
getting-
a
People getting
parent.
their license.
Their
Yeah.
licenses. I mean, when you get your license in these areas, this is what you go on.
so the schools of education will use this to develop. And that's the way our rules work. We write the rules, then the colleges say, okay, now we know how to devise our curricula to meet what you're saying. So we have to be very clear. Not only are they looking at it, but the teachers are like going to use this as their guide too. Okay. So we go down. We're on page 2 now. 3C. So 3 starts in the area of curricular content knowledge. C says differentiate and adapt curricula in response to diverse populations across multiple education settings. I'm not sure what all those things mean combined. What's the ultimate goal of that sentence? I mean, I think I can intuit it, but I'm not exactly sure.
I think this is trying to make it so that can be inclusive, not just a deaf and hard of hearing program, that it is inclusive of whatever setting they're in and.
Right. Whether it's in a
And
general ed setting or.
oftentimes these kiddos will need support outside of the classroom setting, like they'll need it if they're doing extracurricular sports or things like that, so they'll need those supports in other areas, not just typical classroom settings. So I don't know if that is,
Yeah. I would agree with that statement.
and in the purview, that is an educational setting for that kiddo because they're learning those life skills of interacting out in the community with their peers. And
I'm just trying to imagine some examples of putting this into action, right? So you're gonna diverse populations, is that people who speak different languages? Is that people who have different cultural backgrounds?
Yeah.
How do you, and how would you adapt a curricula? I'm just looking for some examples here of how this. would work.
I do know that the deaf community considers themselves a culture unto themselves, and so that might be part of this.
But that would be incorporated into what you're doing already. So you don't have to uh, differentiate the curricula if the category is the deaf student. Because your curricula is, unless that's what you mean.
If we took out in response to diverse populations, just differentiate and adapt curricula across multiple educational settings. Is that?
I mean, I'm not sure that's what you're going for. I just trying to, it is, are you saying diverse, are you saying differentiate and adapt curricula? The standard curricula for deaf and hard of hearing students?
Yes.
Is that what this means?
Yes.
Well, then why don't we say that? Because this looks to me like you're differentiating
Yeah.
your
So
deaf
instead
and
of
hard of
saying
hearing curricula for
just take out
diversity,
this.
which may be appropriate. I don't know what it means.
Across multiple educational settings. Okay.
So can you read that?
Differentiate and adapt curricula for students identified as deaf and hard of hearing across multiple educational settings.
Okay, I know what that means. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're on page 3. This is the numbered page 3. I think on the document as you're scrolling, it's page 5. It starts with B and then C. Second line on the page says, ensure equal access to communication and minimize biased assessment with regard to laws, policies, and ethical principles. I kind of think I know where you're going with that, but it's so awkwardly worded. I think it could be more explicit. So you're ensuring equal access to communication for the deaf and hard of hearing students.
Area of assessment.
And
Relationship between assessment data, recording, programming, planning.
yeah, I mean,
Why should there be any bias?
this is what I'm
I
trying
would
to
like
get
to assume there's no bias. Why do we?
at. But I don't know if we can, I think they probably chose minimized for a good reason. So you have two things. You're ensuring equal access to communication broadly. And then I assume that means and equal access to minimize bias assessment.
Be taken out and minimize.
And minimize.
Maybe if the D is taken out of that, of the minimized.
Ensure equal access to communication and minimize bias.
Yeah, it might be a typo.
Again, I just look, so what's the goal of this? Is this for
So
assessment?
it's the relationship between assessment, data reporting, and programming and planning to ensure equal access to communication and minimize biased assessments with regard to laws, policies, and ethical principles. Because a lot of the standardized tests that we use don't take into account the deaf and hard of hearing population.
Okay. So
So we would want to make sure that we're not negatively impacting them by giving them a lower score because they didn't pass the listening comprehension portion of a test or something like that. I think is what that's trying to get at.
okay.
But still within the rules of the law that we are required to test within these areas. What does that look like?
Right. Well, could we say something like that? And I'm just brainstorming off the top of my head here, trying to get what your intent is. Consistent with laws, policies, and ethical principles. Ensure, we can say minimize assessment bias and ensure equal access to communication.
Yes.
Is that
Yep.
get what you want?
Yes, I think it does. Yeah.
Because Anna's an interesting point, which is, can we say eliminate assessment bias, but I don't know that we can, right? You pick and minimize probably for good reason.
Sure. Yeah.
The two deaf and hard of hearing and the vision, our state assessments or any assessment affects the most.
Yeah,
Those two populations. So you have to really look at that for this group.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so on page 4, so it's the next page down. You got 6A, 1, 2, and 3 on 6.3. So you're demonstrating understanding of socio-cultural, historical, and political considerations unique to deaf culture and the field of education of individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. I think I know what you're going for. That's less awkward than some of the others. But I think it could be clearer and tighter.
6A3.
Yeah,
In
6A.
the area of professional learning and ethical practices.
Yeah.
Demonstrate understanding of.
So one, you have considerations unique to deaf culture. Why is deaf capitalized? Is that a style thing? Do we capitalize that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're looking at considerations unique to deaf culture in the field of education of individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. And you've identified socio-cultural, historical, and political considerations. So, and maybe that's the right way you want to do it. But can you give me like examples of how that would work in practice? So if you're assessing somebody who's going for this credential, how would they demonstrate that they have that understanding of those, all three of those things?
Probably answering questions about that, the historical perspective on sociocultural, political, or, yeah, so I think
Seeing
it
how the
probably
field has
just,
grown.
because it's just demonstrate an understanding of, so it's answering a question of what's your understanding of the
Deaf culture,
deaf culture and
20, 30, 40 years ago to today.
And remember, this is based off of the national and so the other thing is to know is that there are very few programs throughout the country that are specialized in these two fields, in deaf and hard of hearing and visual impairment. So I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, but the committee's thought was to make it broad so that we can get more people into the state, because I think that currently we have a handful of teacher of the deaf and not too many more of teacher of the visually impaired. And we're all sharing these very important individuals between many districts.
Well, once you're done clarifying this document and it's approved, I would share it with the federal level.
So,
Based on it being something that could be interpreted by more people, and maybe the document itself is going to attract people to New Hampshire because of your clarity.
So I'm just trying to think, so we're trying to educate these teachers so they have everything they need to educate this population. And so number 3 here, they have to demonstrate standing up for laws, policies, ethical principles, bounding of access. That makes sense. Their own level of competence. And then the socio-cultural, historical, and political considerations unique to deaf culture. I just kind of to your point earlier, like, are we narrowing this too narrow? Is it too broad?
I think
not
unlike other,
yeah.
I think unlike, I mean, someone who's worked in a school of hard of hearing, unlike other categories, the deaf population is very in tuned to their culture. They're very in tuned to knowledge of their history. They're very in tune to their DNA. As we know, down in the Cape, there's a whole population of deaf individuals there just because of the DNA. So they're very, in some cases, proud of it, and they're very active in that. So I think how we get the individuals in this category, they need to understand that that's very prominent. And many of our students of deaf and hard of hearing, when they get to high school, will go to other states to be educated, because we have one small school, but we don't have the capacity here. They go to Boston, they go to New York. So I think it's a little bit bigger category than some of our other categories in the vision impaired the same way. So I think that's where it's coming from.
Sure.
But I think we could probably word it a little different, but I think that's what we need to make sure
Yeah.
that the people have an understanding, because other states, that is their understanding.
So is it?
I was curious about you refer to DNA. Please elaborate for those of us who have no idea what you're talking
I
about.
can.
Okay.
My family originated, like my family settled Martha's Vineyard. The next island over that she's mentioning is Nantucket. Nantucket had a very high incidence of death during the 1800s and early 1900s. So people like my grandmother, some of the people actually migrated over onto Martha's Vineyard. So a lot of social cultural piece of it was that there were a lot of my grandmother, they helped people, and it was a culture. And Nantucket was known for how they integrated with the communities, because it was a close-knit English community predominantly. They all worked together, and how they helped and assisted those people. The other piece is I went to Whittier Tech in Haverhill, and we had a deaf community back then in the 80s, in the 70s, they put them all in industrial arts, which was kind of, as I look back, was very strange, because a lot of students there had intellectual disabilities, but they actually took the students who were hearing impaired and put them in with them so they could learn how to work on lawnmowers and stuff. And we finally, as students, we got some of them into boat building, because that's where they belonged. So there is a cultural component that the deaf community has been, like, I don't want to use a strong term like ostracized, but like they were compartmentalized into like having as though they had intellectual disabilities, and they didn't. They were actually, a lot of them, very smart, and
Well, so
we actually learned some sign language ourselves.
And the reason I use the word DNA, some of it's genetic,
Yeah.
and that's the population in the Cape, it was genetic. And so many people were deaf and hard of hearing in that population, and they had to learn. So that's kind of what we're up against in a good and bad and a different way. But I think.
So a similarity would be when folks came over from Ireland, they were a cohort. This is its own unique cohort too.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'll find these cohorts in a lot of places because of comfortability.
So if I
Thank
can
you.
just sort of focus us back on this. So my concern mainly is like, how are the people gonna learn this? Is this part of, you're signaling to the teacher pet programs that they're gonna have to teach this, and they're gonna have to teach these 3 areas. And I just make sure that's exactly what you guys were hoping to achieve. Because I don't deny that there's some value here. I just want to make sure we're doing what we intended to do, and that this will be something we can actually measure. Because we find often we write stuff in rules that we're not going to measure. But if we think we're actually going to do that.
Yeah, this can be measured through a prompt, asking a prompt, maybe even just that. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that was the last one I had.
Okay.
I need to open our public hearing.
Yes.
So nobody's here to sign up for it, but we need to open it. We have a public hearing on an initial proposal for basic academic skills and subject area assessments. We're opening that public hearing. I see nobody there, so we'll just keep it open. Okay. So those are my big concerns. I think often when we pull language from national standards, this happens. And we end up pulling language that's hard to explain and hard for people to understand. So we fixed everything but the first one.
I flagged that, so.
So I think that one absolutely has to be changed, but I don't want to take the time to edit it right now. But we can put a pin in it.
It is up for expiration, but again, we've got time, in the second draft, so I can even, if you.
No, because they're.
If we flag this language and you guys want to come up with some iterations of it, or,
Amendments.
maybe Bill can.
And this is just initial.
A little bit. We've got some time. We cannot put a final proposal forward until the public hearing has occurred, and the public hearing would not be occurring until September at the earliest.
Okay.
Yeah, so we
Just to give you a
don't,
timeline.
ideally, we don't want to table these, we'd like to
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah.
But if everybody else is okay with those changes and then putting a pin in that first paragraph, I think we can move forward.
Great.
I make a motion to approve the initial proposal for ED 507.43 special education teacher in the area of deaf and hearing disabilities.
As amended.
As amended.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Okay, C.
Okay, so this is the balance of those advanced endorsements that that same committee worked on. So for specific learning disability, we wanted to, there was a lot of it was, changing the terms to be measurable terms, honestly, throughout this document. We did, change preference, learning styles to preferences. Sometimes when we went through the way we reworded it, we had to change the verb or, that type of thing. We also, just with the same with EBD, we want to make these more generalized versus more specific, because the field is ever changing and we want to make sure that these standards are good for the next 10 years.
We're looking at 507.45 right now.
Yes, yeah. And this, in this particular, if you go to 5, the language change for 5, this was where it was really important to have higher ed on this committee, because that was very, just like the conversation that we just had about what does this look like at the higher ed level, that was the conversations we were having of what does this look like at the higher ed level? Like, how can you actually be teaching these skills at the higher ed level? And we did talk through what that would look like, especially in that section.
So for instance, I look at E2, describe the ideology of the specific learning disabilities, and which was added was including the neurobiological and medical factors that might impact the learning of an individual.
Right.
Which
Including
is obviously very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of language edits from understand to describe, which is measurable and observable.
I love that. I love the fact that understanding it. When they have to describe it, it says that they do understand it and beyond.
I can't tell if you understand something by watching.
Right. Yeah. So we did a lot of it was that changing the language to the measurable terms. But like I said, it was really important to have our higher ed colleagues on this team, because a lot of our conversation, especially with this one, was around, well, what does this look like at the higher ed level? And how are we truly preparing?
Use explain in lieu of understand,
Yeah.
articulate instead of.
I really like those changes. That's
Yeah,
very
thank you.
actionable. We've tried to make those changes ourselves in rules as they've gone forward, so.
Well, I think at the PSB, like,
Yeah.
that's been carried over as
Always.
we begin each new year with the PSB and we kind of bring in new people. We try to emphasize the need for measurability, essentially. So,
Conversations always.
yes.
So I have one question on these. So on that transition on page 4 to 5. I have
What
F.
number is it?
So it's 8507.45B3. And then you scroll down, top of page 5, it's F. So recognize the impact specific learning disabilities may have on your auditory and information is struck out and replaced with psychological processing skills. So you just, what's the thought process behind that?
B3.
F.
Oh, because that was, because when you look at the different psychological processing skills. It includes more than just auditory information. So we wanted to make it a
It's a broader category.
category to meet and I think that in the last 20 years that the understanding of the complexities that can come along with specific learning disability has become more known. So it's maybe at that time it was more focused on the auditory information, but today it's much more than that.
So it's your understanding that auditory and information sort of fall under psychological?
It does, yeah.
It does.
Yeah, when you go to the, when a kid goes through, psychological testing, it includes those components.
Okay,
So,
great. Sounds good.
Um,
I didn't have anything else on that,
okay.
on this rule.
I make a motion to approve the initial proposal for ED 507.45 special education teacher in the area of specific learning disabilities and ED 507.46.
Oh, but hold on,
Yeah, did you
hold on.
talk about 4.6?
Yeah,
Let's do 4.6 first.
I was wondering, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Well, I didn't have anything else.
all on
That
the
doesn't
same
mean,
page.
that doesn't mean other people might not.
And so, so 4.6 is, physical and health impairment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so as you can see, there are 6 to 8 people because it's not been identified. I know that 2 of these people have passed, but they have not let their families have not let the Department of Ed know that. So so there are 6 to 8 people that hold this license. All of them have a lifetime license, which was given out
Pre-2008.
pre-2000. I mean, pre-1980s, I believe. So, the youngest person that holds this license is in their upper 70s, not currently practicing. So we are proposing that this advanced endorsement be struck but that it be kept as a placeholder and that you allow us to develop standards for an autism advanced endorsement in this area. I strongly believe that would be a great addition to this field, is to be able to bring in teachers that have an expertise in working with kids with autism.
Given the explosion of all kids with that.
Yeah, well, and right now we are reliant on BCBA's to provide that service because we don't have anything other than, I didn't point it out, but in IDD, it did say autism spectrum disorder, but we struck that from those rules because not every kid with autism has the intellectual developmental disability, and that sent the wrong message. I think that it's really important for us to develop a specific category just for autism.
I don't think you get any disagreement from us on that.
Okay.
So you allow us to do it?
Great.
Go for it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yes, I've already connected with other
I
states
think we
that
have
have
someone
it.
else that can help us with our committee.
I have connected with other states that have that advanced endorsement for teachers, so we have a starting point for that work.
Right, thank you.
Well then, I make the motion to approve the initial proposal for ED 507.45 special education teacher in the area of specific learning disabilities and for ED 507.46 special education teacher in the area of physical and health impairments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So now we're down to D.
So similar to the deaf and hard of
blind.
hearing, this is now teacher of the blind and visual impairments, and that committee as well wanted to adopt the CEC national standards.
These ones though were much easier to read. Much easier.
Yeah.
Any questions on these?
There was one within the current language that the committee felt really strongly about not having was, and it was a pretty robust discussion on the 10
Old standards.
on the old standards. Yes, there was language in there about those with this licensure providing supervision and evaluations, and the committee felt that definitely be out. And so that is not in the new language at all. But they wanted it mentioned that they are not in any way a supervisor or evaluator.
Alrighty, I make a motion to approve the initial proposal for ED 507.47, special education teacher in the area of blind and vision impairments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for all the hard work, all you put into this. We appreciate it a lot. I know these are very complicated rules, lots of people with very strong opinions on them. And it's thankless work, so appreciate it.
I just have a philosophical question for you.
There we go.
Whether or not the category that at least deaf and hard of hearing and sight and maybe physical health, that should they fall under special education or do they have their own?
No, they're truly specialists in their field. So what it looks like is that we have, like I said, we have a handful of each of these categories in the state. So we're sharing them between all of us. And so if you have a kid with visual impairments, our TVI, our teacher with the visual impairment, will come in and they will maybe provide a service once a month, but they will come in and make sure that the team has in place the right contrast for the materials that are being presented to kids or the or
accommodations
light
that they
boards.
need.
So I guess where I'm coming from is that growing up and raising kids, special education to me was kids who have extreme learning disabilities versus someone who has a hearing impairment or a sight impairment. They're not it's not their brain, it's other factors that
Well,
are.
some of it can be their brain,
But I also understand what you're saying. We do have students that are on 504s.
Because we have stigma, it's got a stigma, like, oh, you're in the special ed department.
Students that are on 504s that have vision impairments. We have students on 504 with hearing impairments. However, they're still getting accommodations to the school. We're using the expertise. I mean, yes, we put them in this category, but I can tell you, my expertise is someone that deals with seriously emotionally disturbed children. I'm being called all the time for 504 cases. So they are interchangeable in somewhat, even though we're putting this, the certifications under the special ed arena. The vision impaired, the hearing impaired, the people that deal with serious emotionally disturbed are being called into other kids, other cases and other supports. And that's happening everywhere. I think it's a category that we have to have. And especially we need to have in the state. I think we do unfortunately have hard times getting some of these individuals, and we're paying as districts a lot of money to get these expertise to come in. But I think for right now, we need to leave them here. However, I think that as what you're saying, Ms. Lane, is a big discussion.
As an individual who has a hearing impairment or a vision impairment.
Because we have learning disability students the same way. They're on 504 plans. We have autistic children the same way. They're on 504 plans, just getting accommodation.
So I think, and one way to look at it is, I mean, you guys don't see it this way, but I kind of broadly see it as specialized education.
I would rather change the name to that.
Not special education, because special is sort of like a,
It's
it has to
the
carry a
sti-
certain stigma,
it's
but
a
what we're
stigma.
talking about here is specializing education for their particular needs. And I think we sort of broadly call that special education, but really it's using specialists to help these kids. And it doesn't mean that they are cognitively deficient in any way. It just means they need a specialist to help them. I think that's
because 504 is under IDEA.
yeah.
So if they should have it, they should split it out, but still have the 504 component in IDEA.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, but I think just conceptually, that's what we're looking at here is
Like,
specializing the education for them.
you think at Perkins School for the Blind in Massachusetts, right? So a lot of students go there, fully vision impaired, but some of them do have an IEP.
Yeah.
Not all of them.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we get consultants from them. It's real awesome.
And as a district, you get money under IDA, you don't get it under 504.
Right.
Ah,
Yeah.
That's, I mean, in our state, for special ed aid, they give money for special needs students for Perkins, which is a very costly institution. I can get reimbursement. Under 504, I cannot. So, I mean, as districts, think about these things. That's something that.
Okay.
Such a bigger change, in just a word.
And I think that's why you might have seen exceptionalities throughout a lot of the CEC documents, is because they are trying to change the language from disabilities to exceptionalities.
Yeah, I think, and just so you guys know, I mean, I know we've had this conversation before, but one of the reasons I like that term is because we just want to limit the jargon
Yeah.
that we use and use more plain language for people when they're reading these, because obviously almost entirely people who read these are specialists who probably will have some knowledge of it, but not entirely. There's some people who, like an administrator, might not really know what some of these words mean. And sometimes you really do get parents looking at this kind of stuff. And so we just want to make sure that everybody can easily understand the language.
Our statutes are required. Our cities are required.
Yeah. So, yeah. So thank you guys for the help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for filling our day with joy.
We're the biggest thing on your.
are. And we knew you would be too, so.
Thank you guys.
We'll be back in, right, for general early childhood specialists.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now we have family consumer science teacher. And I had a conversation with Lily yesterday about this, so she knows this is not frank because it's a Festivus rule. I have a lot of problems with this rule. And I just want to lay it out conceptually for you guys as I go through here. Some of it is with the individual paragraphs that are a little unwieldy, but conceptually, I look at this rule and I'm trying to figure out, so we're setting the credentials for these FACS teachers. And when you go through the requirements, it's evident to me that there's several decades worth of cobbled together rule here. Some of this is old home ec stuff. Some of this is modern FACS class stuff. And I think what we've got is a hodgepodge of knowledge and expertise that we want a teacher to know that is not coherent. So when we're looking at this class, you have a component of it that is old-fashioned, basically home economics. We're going to teach kids life skills that we want them to know. And that's the original concept of this class. And I think there's real value in having that. But then as you go down the rule, you get career path stuff that is slightly related to the home ec that we're teaching kids. So, for example, you can see back, again, many years ago, where we have things in here we want students to know, basic life management stuff. And it's how to manage your budget, your resources for food, clothing, and shelter. And among those things we want them to know is how to sew and mend your clothes. So that's one of the things we're looking at here. I think that makes some certain sense, although you could make an argument now that we don't really need to know a lot of that stuff because you can go down to a thrift store and buy something for $5. So, but if we're going to keep that stuff in there, that's fine. But then we transition to knowing career pathways in fashion and apparel and architecture. And I don't see how those are at all related to home economics or your life skills. So we don't have, it's a weird combination of basically a CTE class rolled into the back half of let's make you an independent teenager.
It's a conglomeration.
It really is. So my general thought on this, if we table this today, we're gonna run into a problem with the rule expiring. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this. My own thought is we move forward with this initial proposal, but we began a conversation, we bring some CTE people in, we bring some facts people in. There's nobody from the PSB on this particular rule available today, but I want to bring them in. And let's start a bigger conversation about what we want this class to actually be, because I don't think this class knows what it wants to be.
This
And
is important too.
it's very important. Yeah.
We need to have those folks come in and chat with us about it.
Because I think there's a place for career and tech ed, but I don't think it's in fact class. I think fact classes, here are the basic life skills, minimum basic life skills that you need to know to if your parents die and you wind up an 18-year-old having to take care of yourself, you got to balance your accounts, you got to know how, like, I would look at, we have to see we have a personal finance class requirement, we have economics. So some of the stuff is we have to separate those out. But
Did you take distributive education?
did I what?
Take distributive education?
No.
I did.
No. So anyway, I just want to flag
I
that.
was running a store.
That'd be great.
How do you run a store?
How do you run a store? Not how do you run a store?
Distributive education.
So,
I think
but Roger and I have had, so another thing that I want to get us to talk about, we did this in another part of the meeting, is I don't think it fits in facts class, but
You're calling this facts class?
FAC, Family and Consumer Science. That's what they call it. That's the acronym, and they call it that at school. The kids know it as facts.
But I think that is what like causes the transition, because the first half is the family science. The consumer science is where they pushed in architecture and clothing design. And if you go to the Association of Facts, right,
So-
like it has all of that sort of look.
Right, and it's, so I think there's real value in saying, okay, how do home loans work? How does rent work? Like if you need to become a renter, how do you save how does a security deposit work? That kind of stuff could be very valuable in a fact class, or a financial literacy class. Like we have to figure out where things go. But when we're talking about career pathways, that just seems way divergent from what this course is intended to do.
Well, it's also that I can't remember, this is not required for graduation.
It's basically middle school. They have,
Financial, right.
yeah.
Financial literacy is.
Financial literacy and economics are in high school. Facts is essentially a middle school class for the most part. And kids love it. Look, they learn to bake, they learn how to cook on the stovetop, they learn how to do basic life skills. And
They don't need to know anything about home loans because they can't afford a home anyway.
but they don't need to know about a career in textiles. Like, so I grew up in a city that was a textile city. Like I can see back in the day, our local high school saying, hey, we want to supply the mills, so we're going to teach kids how to have a career in textiles. But I don't know why we do that.
Tourism is in here as well.
Do our
Tourism, but
CTE
still, why
programs,
Could be dangerous.
do our CTE programs include textiles?
But that's a whole separate thing.
No,
CTE, like I don't.
Does it? I'm curious.
Maybe.
Probably some of them do different programs.
Yeah, there's different programs in parts of the state, but my point is, some of the stuff just doesn't seem to me to belong in facts class.
So,
Yeah, and just to clarify, this is not a CTE endorsement.
No, it's
a
not.
comprehensive, which means that it is in the regular classroom. It's not part of CTE.
Yeah, but you have some CTE type components in
Yes.
it.
Yep.
That have been built in over the years, and I just think it doesn't know what it wants to be, so.
No, if you ask any fashion designer, they all had some first exposure through sheer necessity, and even you fix your bicycle and so then you move into things like that. So it is a good aspirational thing to put there. But what you're really talking about is, should we actually go straight into teaching career in that,
So-
but it's actually a good starting point for several careers.
Well, it's not, but so my point is, this isn't a career path class.
I know,
Right?
okay.
So if you want to teach kids about different textiles and fabrics and say, okay, when would you wear wool versus cotton versus linen? How do you repair and mend your clothes and that kind of thing? Okay, like those are life skills you don't necessarily learn. I learned that stuff in Scouts, right? But you don't necessarily learn that. But that's different than saying, oh, and by the way, here's how to become a fashion designer. Like, it's just sort of a weird addition. So
And someone from the PSB that worked on these might be able to explain that in a much more nuanced way as to what they were thinking when they put the language in, so.
and then we've got some issues. So the current language says, has a requirement to analyze principles of human growth and development throughout the lifespan. It's pretty straightforward. That's replaced in the new proposal with relate theory and practices of human development, interpersonal relationships and families to continuing concerns that individual and families face across the lifespan, demonstrating knowledge of appreciation of for diverse perspectives, needs, characteristics, and of individuals and families.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Can you summarize that?
Yeah. And so that's my point, is that we had one sentence that pretty much said the same thing with a little less detail. So
ChatGPT to bring it back to
yeah. So you have another section. Current rule is identify strategies that promote growth and development over an individual's lifespan. Identify external support systems that provide services for parents. That's replaced with analyze and evaluate roles and responsibility of parenting and parenting practices. That's really vague. Like, I'm not sold on these changes.
So we can talk about this with others at the next meeting, or do we have?
Yeah, I think we look to bring some of those PSP folks back to the next meeting. My question for you guys is, if you've read through these, we have multiple options. Like, one is to pass this initial proposal and then work on it as it goes forward. One is to pass as an initial proposal the current rules, not the changes. And the other is to do an interim proposal, but I don't think we need to do an interim.
You know, after discussing it yesterday, I feel like it's probably not.
I think
most
that's the
efficient
worst
path.
option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So what's the duration of this class? Because there is a lot.
It's a one semester class,
One semester class,
right? Isn't it mostly one semester? I think it's half credit.
and,
I don't
and,
know.
and what's
Pretty
the,
sure
and what's the age?
Middle school, seventh.
I feel like I
Oh,
did
man.
it in 8th grade and it was the whole year.
I'm sorry,
It may be the
I
whole
mean,
year.
that was a long time ago, so.
I did 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah.
At Pentucket Junior High in West Newbury, Massachusetts. We did not cover tourism and architecture.
Right.
It was really life skills, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Were you in home ec or were you in facts?
Yeah, back in your day, it was home economics
Like
probably.
it is they
was
have
homework for me, too.
evolved it through the
Right,
association.
but so what I'm getting at is that there's an awful lot being put into one class here.
Yep.
That's what I'm getting at.
No, well, and that's kind of my point too, is that
So that's
It's grown, but
maybe it's a whole year class.
to do
Well,
this.
or maybe there are different segments. Maybe this endorsement covers, I don't know. I can't
I
speculate.
think
so.
this is the facts class, I could be wrong. I think it's generally a one semester class. Maybe some schools do. Maybe it's a whole year.
So what do you think the best option is?
I'm almost on the fence about whether we do the current rules or do the changed rules. I don't like a lot of the
We have
changes.
access to both of them, you know, so
What's that?
we have I have drafts of both, and so we can certainly compare them.
Understanding where this is going, I would just renew the existing.
We just renew it and then bring it up, like then it's on the books. We don't have to worry about the deadline. And then
Yes.
you can reopen them anytime, right? You can reopen them as
But
you.
it goes the same way, right? So if we adopt the existing rules, that's the initial proposal, we still have 180 days. It still goes through the whole rulemaking process.
So
And we can amend those as we go forward. My concern with amending on the fly is I want the public, we could do 2 public hearings. I want the public hearing to be on the final rules that we come up with. I don't want to bait and switch people. So just that said, maybe if you want to adopt the current rules and then we could look for areas from pick and choose what we like from here to add on to it, but also have a broader conversation. I don't know that we have the ability to really modify this whole course in that 180 days, but we should at least begin that conversation. All right. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay.
I make a motion that the State Board of Education adopt the existing ED 507-50 rules for a comprehensive family and consumer science teacher.
As the initial proposal.
I did say it.
Adopt as the initial proposal, the
Oh,
existing rules.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Okay. All right.
We're gonna
So
take what
current
is
rules-
currently in rule and bring that
Just bring
forward.
it forward
as
and
a-
then we'll have some conversations about it. Okay,
I think that's all I have.
great. That's it for you.
Thank you.
Close the public hearing too.
Hey, yeah. Nobody showed up for the public hearing? Okay, close. Okay. I want to skip over to the consent agenda. Commissioner's not here today. She's she's at an event or a
Yeah, she's in DC attending a couple of conferences. Yeah.
conferences, yeah.
It's a busy month.
Yeah, okay. So on the minutes, did anybody have any changes on either of the minutes, the amended minutes for April or the minutes for June? I had one change in the June minutes, the very first page. Senator Lang, his name is misspelled. There's no E on the end. It has an E on the end, but he doesn't have an E on the end. So that E
Gotcha.
needs to be taken out. So we could do both those minutes.
I move the State Board of Education to approve the meeting minutes of April 9th, 2026 as amended, as well as the minutes of June 11th, 2026 as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. For Learn Everywhere, I don't have any updates on that, but I talked to Nate and so we're gonna try to get a meeting, just a couple of, so me and Nate and maybe one other board member, if anybody wants to get in on just talking about the changes to the initial proposal. So if anybody wants to volunteer, I can look for a date. Or just let me know. We can't have a quorum of members, but I can have another member and we can just go through and make some revisions to those. But I think if we do it by in the next few weeks, we'll have it ready to go in August. So let me know if you want to get in on that. And then I think just as an open board discussion, so Roger and I just really touched on this briefly, and this is at this point it's a half-baked idea, but I'm just gonna throw it out there for discussion and maybe look at picking up some rulemaking on it. This would be one that we'd bring a whole lot of people into because we've been creating a new course, but sort of inspired by the charter school we just approved. Currently for high school graduation, we require a semester of economics and a semester of financial literacy, but neither of those covers starting a business. And if you look at going forward, if you look at just the data on what young people say they want and the percentage of people who are starting their own businesses, either as a main career or as a side hustle, is just shooting through the roof. Like technology is changing the ease with which you can start your own business. And I think there's some value into at least having a conversation about whether we want to find a way to put in the minimum standards in entrepreneurship course as something that at least schools would have to offer if students don't have to take it. Some students do offer entrepreneurship. Some schools offer courses on understanding the stock market. So, but if we are looking at what's most valuable for students as they graduate and become independent citizens in the new century, it's just, I think, something worth having a conversation about.
What's the pushback? What could be the?
Oh, you know what it'll be. It'll be, this is, who's going to teach this? What are the qualifications? You have to come up with a whole rubric for teacher qualifications and where are we going to find those people and time commitments and how are we going to fit this in? There'll be all kinds of pushback. But
so this is exactly the discussion that I've had in Japan. So to come back to the same point, and there it is way more conventional. I should say they don't want to change at all the school system. And finally, they reached a point where either you change or die. No, I'll forward the link. There's closing schools across the country because they had 3 kids in a school. That's the kind of where they used to have 800 kids. And so it is kind of because of, they reached a point where they have to do something completely different. Okay, they cannot just keep saying the school as is. So, of course, we are nowhere close to that. But as someone said, wait to fail or something like that. We don't want to get to that point. Okay, to as a community and a country, to reach the point where we don't have next level of trained people to take on and become the workforce. So in this current process of, because this has been my work for quite some time, entrepreneurship almost is at the end of a journey, but there are about few layers before that. And the first layer of development of an entrepreneur is building confidence, creativity, self-learning skills and such. Our education system actually kills it. Okay, because you're putting them through curriculum, writing exam, rather than we spoon feed you with all the information, you need to write back the same exam and then you clear. Actually, there is a lot of teaching going on, but with very little learning. Okay, and kids graduate with, so I can tell you by age 15, the kid has lost his confidence in themselves and their ability they can do what they can want, what they believe they can do. Because, and the creativity and everything kind of, because of this kind of what do you call it, the blinders that we put on them. Okay, so the process now we are actually implementing is to start at middle school and earliest to train them in taking them through this learning process and making them realize I can go figure out anything I want. It is not about teaching technology or startup or anything like that. It's just anything you want to go, I have the ability to go learn.
Building confidence.
So that
Building confidence.
building confidence and the self-learning skills, which includes.
I mean, that's exactly it. It's teaching the students to solve problems rather than to answer tests, right? So the current system basically teaches them to study,
Repeat back what
and
I told
repeat
you.
back what they learned on some sort of test format, and that doesn't lend itself to entrepreneurial talents very well. I mean, there's
Today's needs.
the needs, but also so you just look at, I mean, how many case studies the business schools teach? Right, Smith is the most famous one. FedEx of business of entrepreneurs being told that their idea can't possibly work, and then they just say, "Screw you, I believe in it," and they go do it, and they make it happen, and they create $1 billion company. So Gallup told this a couple years ago. 62% of Americans, according to Gallup, want to start their own business. That's if you ask people, would you rather be your own boss or work as an employee for someone else? Only about 1/3 of Americans say they'd rather work for somebody else. But I've seen some polling where the number is even higher for people who want to be their own boss. And we don't have anything in our system that shows them how to do that, trains them how to think like that.
So if you can teach them basic finance and basic, like what you just talked about in the home economics, which is like, I should have learned this, how to manage money when I was a kid. I struggled when I was an adult trying to figure this out. Similarly, how do we teach them how to find problems, solve problems?
It's overcoming, it's solving problems, but it's also, so one of the biggest hurdles to starting your business is, well, gosh, this is regulated. I don't know, I gotta get trained. How do you figure out how to get a loan? How do you, all this stuff about, how do you jump those hurdles that are put in place just to open a restaurant or a little shop?
So
and
the
bakery, and the bakery, I learned this firsthand this spring. All the things you have to learn just to open a storefront, they're completely surmountable, but they're very daunting if you look at it, from as a scary mountain to climb.
Just take a look at the rubric for opening a charter school. It's the same.
Yeah,
The components of opening a charter school are the same.
Yeah.
With subtle changes, obviously.
But I think what I hear Raj saying, I agree, right? Like, it's not just about starting a business. It is about possessing the intellectual curiosity to want to continue to learn. It's like a growth mindset is what it is. It's confidence and mindset.
Not just the curiosity. Curiosity, absolutely. I have the curiosity to start 3 or 4 businesses, but to
So it's not just about starting businesses.
I'm not confident enough.
It's not just about starting businesses.
So
It is
to your
about,
point, the word entrepreneurship is a French word which means to undertaker. Entrepreneur is an undertaker who can find a problem and take leadership in solving it.
right.
That's
Not
it.
about starting a
Okay.
business.
So
Right.
this is a new interpretation saying you need to go start a business to make money. So I'm going back to the core concept of an entrepreneur, the French word. And so what are the basic skills you need to have? One is, of course, the curiosity, confidence, communication skills, and self-learning skills and all that. And the courage to go figure out in yourself, the belief in yourself that you can go do that.
I hear echoes of what Fred Bramante's been talking about, which is about passion and about like we're all born, right here, we'll go to my psych background now. We're all born learners. We're all born naturally curious. Any kid with an electrical outlet will tell you, right? Like, you want to know what the heck it's about. Or like everything goes in the mouth, right? Like, it's just like, what's this thing? What's it? Like, so I investigate. And school, the structure of it, which is I think what the core is, which is, will a class fix this or not, or is it something bigger? Feeds the curiosity out of them. And I'm using that word pretty
Ken
directly.
Robinson.
Through like they throw malincentives of grades.
Yeah.
They make it so like the grades what I'm going after, not the learning.
Yeah.
They make you feel like, oh, I got a few bad grades in this one thing. I'm bad at this thing, as
I'm a
opposed to
failure.
like I'm a failure. I've always been told I'm not a good speller. Back from Sister Barbara's days. And that's still in my head. I'm not a good speller. But like some of this is like very concrete skills, and some of it is the approach that we are
100%.
incentivizing here and structured as a society and state to how we are saying, like, we are facilitating like people growing.
That's why I think if we at least have this conversation about entrepreneurship class. Look,
I would call it innovation and entrepreneurship.
Sure,
because,
yeah, right. Yeah,
Because
but a lot of, I mean, there's actually a lot of academic studies on this, particularly from Africa, where you basically have to start a small business, right? And one of the things that they consistently find that separates successful businesses from failed businesses is your mindset.
Totally.
It's a large part of it's psychological. And I guess to Raj's point about, can you think like an innovator? Can you take on challenges? Can you be taught to think about how to solve problems rather than being taught just to return answers on a test, right? So
it's about teaching the innovator mindset.
yeah, that's a big part of it. And then you sort of teach that innovator mindset, but you also then teach like practical stuff. Okay, you're going to start a business. You got to find out what the
Teacher
regulations are
encourage.
in this field, right?
Yeah.
And what are they? And then you work on a business plan. And so how would you estimate your revenues and your audience and all this stuff? You can do that in one semester class at a very basic level.
I feel,
so we have three, again, I talked about 3 layers, the 3 phases of development of entrepreneurs. One is a maker, innovator, entrepreneur. Okay. Maker is somebody who can actually go and learn anything and create things. And, as I said, 2 weeks back, I was at Khan Academy School in California, teaching 2nd graders to design stuff in CAD and electronics and code and make movies and things 2 days. Okay. And 8-year-olds. Okay. And you may think, how can they learn all these things? They already have the innate ability to learn.
Yeah.
It is us who kind of look at them as, oh, you won't be able to learn it because I can't learn it. And we put our filter on what we teach our kids.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a maker part. Innovator is a problem solver. Can you put things together to solve a problem? Now that you know how to create things, can you create things to solve a problem? Natural next step is, okay, now that you've found a problem and you created something, how do you monetize it and commercialize it? Okay, that is the entrepreneur part of things. Okay, but we almost need to start from the bottom up. And I would like to take on a failing school. Because that is the best way to show it. Okay, I would like to take on a failing school and do this and show that in the next 5 years, this school is the most people want to come there and learn.
Pilot it. You want pilot it.
Raj, you
Yeah,
gotta go,
piloted in a
you gotta go
very-
take over an innovation school. You gotta go.
Yeah, I know, I know, I know, I truly, but I don't know how to, the rest of the things, I don't know, I can teach, I can change these kids, but the rest of it is beyond me, like. So I talked to Mario from Nashua, and he was saying, can you create a school inside a school? We have middle schoolers who are not coming to school or, failing out. Can you create something just to get them, but none of them had money to invest, I was just 20,000 bucks, can we just put all these things together? Oh, we don't have money to do that,
Yeah.
So.
But there are grants, like you could, so I love that, right? The innovation, if Nashua, it's nice to hear that they're thinking in those terms, right? Because they could certainly devise an innovation school in Nashua that I think we would all be happy to help them approve. If they can, and there are grants that you can apply for and nonprofit foundations and stuff where you can maybe get some seed money for something like that. But I think looking at opportunities from the state board's point of view to provide New Hampshire students with an opportunity that their schools have to offer to learn that mindset and to think like an entrepreneur would be transformative for them, but also for the state. You don't have to go start a business to benefit from the way entrepreneurs think about things. And it can help you in your life in general, in basic problem solving. So I think it's something we should look at taking up.
I not to pitch this, in 2 weekends from now. I'm actually running the Zero to Maker workshop, which is exactly the thing I was running. I'd like you to come and watch it on the second day. Come and see what these kids are doing in learning. And if you have kids, send them there, and you can see the kind of change, so.
Well, I confirm everything you've said. I was installing a new gate at my son's house and my 22-month-old granddaughter comes running up with her drill from her toy chest.
Trying to help.
I'm ready. Ready. She takes the level and she holds it up at 22 months.
Yeah.
I mean, this is every day of your life, Phil, but.
And relative to your phase 3 entrepreneur, there is an existing organization out there to help people on that score.
Yeah.
And those are retired executives.
Yeah.
And my wife and I actually attended one.
Yeah.
And thinking about doing a business, and I was really impressed with what they did. And the people, they volunteer.
Okay.
But of course, they're also people that are willing to invest.
Yeah.
But
Ken, the
they see,
problem-
and that's why they do it.
So the issue here is that we pick the lowest hanging fruits. That means kids who say, I want to start a company, and you can train them, obviously. Imagine professional sports. If I walk into a soccer team and say, I want to play center forward, they're going to throw me out, okay? Because they go to schools, find talent, train them, scout them, give them things, all the way build them up to that point. We're not doing that in
You need
innovation.
phase 1 and phase 2.
That's
but-
right. That's a
We're
great
just
point.
picking the last, the few who sign, and that is about less than 1% of the kids who go through schools with their confidence intact.
But you look at,
That gets back to school.
so you look at, and I'm sure Raj has a lot of info on this, but you look at Harvard and Stanford, for example, just to take 2 schools where as a freshman at either of those 2 schools, if you're in the business department and you're looking into doing tech startups, or if you're in the computer engineering, you are already being scouted as a freshman at those schools. And venture capitalists are inviting you to parties, they're trying to get to know you, they're sizing you up for your mindset, for your, how do you approach problem solving, how do you approach stuff, and you don't have to graduate, they're going to try to divert you. They actively try.
That
to
is the
get
1% I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What if you start in middle school or
Well,
elementary school?
that's kind of the point. Is
You can
like-
create 1 million of them coming out.
right.
You have changed the
Like,
country.
but it doesn't go so, like, it's so broad spectrum. Like, we could be creating entrepreneurial mindset on people who are going to become big tech founders at some point. But if you want to start an electrician or plumbing business, you should know this stuff too.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about faux tech and getting kids in the trades, which we should look at doing more of. But do they know how to start? Once they've done their training, you can start your own company in the trades, and you can be making 6 figures plus by
Right out of the
20
gate.
yeah, by 2021, you don't need to go to school for 15 years to do that.
Distributive education.
But if you have had a course in high school that teaches you how to think like a startup business owner, then when you get out, you're gonna be psychologically prepared. I know how to go get this license. I know what to do to set up my company. I know what to do to market it. I mean, I think we just be putting all kids in New Hampshire on a better footing for the future.
So there, I'm just going to get a little philosophical piece here,
Yeah.
but and totally agree with what you're saying, Raj. Having been in the construction field since 1985, I've watched some degradation. And the degradation is what I'm seeing, and I'm sort of biased. I'll be honest. I was an HVAC service technician, problem solver, indoor air quality issues. I just have I love to learn. I love to figure things out. I still do it. I'm up in Campbell, figuring things out for my neighbors and stuff going on in their houses and stuff. There is a growing degradation right now in the construction field of problem solving.
Yeah.
And there's something, I don't know what's going on. I can't put my finger on it. But what I'm going to say is you're putting your finger on it right now. There's something in our education system that is moving away from problem solving. And I don't know exactly what it is in all the curriculum, but it's very evident because I can talk to people my own age in a different trade and I'll present an issue and they'll start asking questions and they'll actually help me try to figure out what I'm working on. But if I go to someone younger in another trade, they're like, well, I don't know anything about that.
So
Okay, and it's like there's no.
It's our quick fix.
Yeah.
It's our
So-
quick fix society. It's our fast food society.
So,
It's
One of my standard questions as a local school board member to my superintendents for 15 years as we elected teachers, my standard question is I got their list of credentials, their bachelor's, master's degree, and all their credentials. My closing question is, can this teacher instill a desire to learn in students?
That's exactly it. Or
And I make sure my superintendents, because they are making that nomination, say yes. Since they can't say yes, I'm not electing that teacher.
then the problem, worst case, I just want to, can the person is qualified to teach? That's one thing. What we don't think about is that most of the kids who say they don't like math, I can't learn math. When you go back in their life, they had a math teacher who put the fear of math in them very early on for the rest of their lives. Okay,
Yeah.
so can a teacher teach well is one thing, but will the teacher damage the kids? Because we don't ask them the question because we look for all the qualifications but we don't say, is this teacher the way that you kind of project your own insecurities onto your kids, okay? And do you actually damage the kids and kill their confidence? And that is worse than not teaching, okay? If you don't,
So, Jen, I would say that it's not just that your industries that like are facing that lack of problem solving, critical thinking. I think that it is throughout society. I think that it is, we have an education system that treats you as cups to be filled, not minds to be opened.
Yeah.
So like here, dump this information in your head so you can spit it back out at me.
Yeah.
And then once you have it, like we used to call it spec and dump in college. It's just like, hold on to it long enough to get it into the test, and then there it goes, it's gone. And I still spec and dump. I tell people at work, if I've said it, forget it. I cannot remember.
I will attribute a lot of this to the lack of comprehension just in our elementary grades. And I'll say this, like even Canadians have the same thing. I'll say, hey, do you remember the medieval ranking system as an example? Squire, a sir, a knight. How do all those things work? And people will say, well, what does that mean? That's like way back when. Because they open up your eyes to another theory or a structure. And I think back in my own education, which was in Groveland, Massachusetts, in my elementary school, and we covered a lot of information. It was just a dump. It was really getting us to correlate things and make us think, and just interestingly, not teaching serfdom and all that feudalism stuff. Where are we today? Kids can't buy a home. Hello? Where are we going? Which direction are we going here?
a lot of content without context.
No, I think
That's a memorization.
where it comes back to the system though, because you can have a teacher who could inspire someone to learn, but if you have a system that devalues like actual learning and values like,
Instill
can
a
you pass
desire.
the test? Like, I think we don't need to instill a desire to learn. I think people have it and the system rings it out.
I will just, my closing statement is this. In fourth grade, I was walked into our elementary school library. And I can clearly remember distinctly, and I'm 63. They said, this is the Dewey Decimal System. And these are the numbers. If you want to learn anything about the science, you're going to go to these numbers. And you go over here and pull up this car catalog. And I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. Just saying. And that's, you know.
Speaking of, you don't have enough talent or skills in the construction industry. Tim Cook recently said, he was asked, why are you making stuff in China? Is it because it's cheap? He said, which year are you living in? China is more expensive than anywhere else. But if I want a machinist, in the US, I can fill a conference room. In China, I can fill two football stadiums. Okay, I want to make this. Who can make it? I'd rather go there because I don't have to teach people. You know,
We have a service-based economy, not a
and
production.
we have kind of lost that ability. There's a book called Apple and China. I don't know if Apple in China, I think. I read that, I have it on audio. It said Apple invested $1 trillion in China, training them, making them do all the things. And then they went and built their own companies. And all the Huawei's and things like that who make all the phones and stuff came out from that. We invested. And we're not investing in ourselves. And that is.
Well, that's kind of
So-
my
Back to the whole maker.
Yeah, it is a maker. You have to start that at the point.
But I think, you know, for New Hampshire, we're actually as good as we are competing with other states. One of the areas where we're not as strong is entrepreneurship. We don't actually have as many business startups here as you would think we would have. Yeah. And I think if we're gonna look at our economy going forward, like how are we gonna best serve our students? And how are we gonna best serve the state of New Hampshire? Those questions overlap. And giving them that mindset, those entrepreneurial skills, that problem-solving way of thinking, making sure they at least have contact with that and they learn the basics of that, will give them, whether they ever want to go start their own business or not, a lot of skills that will help them later in life. A great mindset, problem-solving skills. But if we're going to look at building the future, you don't build the future by becoming an expert on the past. You build the future by innovating. And it takes people who think a certain way to do that. So if we are the only state that is requiring entrepreneurship in high school, and we're graduating 120,000 kids a year, because that number is going to be shrinking as we go forward. But even at the shrinking levels, we're graduating 120, 140,000 kids a year who all have touched that mindset and those skills. If 5% of those, 4% of those kids actually become innovators and start their own business, that's a big growth from where we are now. And just think of all the new startups, all the innovation, all the
They create
problem solving.
jobs.
But even if they
Well,
don't,
each one of those companies will create jobs, right?
but
So,
even if they don't, they'll help
They'll help somebody else.
field.
But if they do, so let's say even like a tiny percentage end up starting their own companies. Where are they going to do that?
New Hampshire.
They're going to do it here, right? They're not going to go somewhere else to do it. They're already got this mindset. They graduate, they start problem solving. We're seeding the small business and innovation future of New Hampshire by doing this, and we're creating, a new generation of kids who can build the next New Hampshire. And I just think that's really powerful, rather than continue this brain drain of saying, well, if you should go to MIT, not that there's anything wrong with that, but you should go somewhere out of state to learn all these things. Why don't we start teaching them here?
So learning all those things is one thing. People leave the state. I was talking to the president of the UNH system, and she was talking about the number of kids from New Hampshire who are going to UNH
Yeah.
has reduced quite a lot.
Falling, yeah.
Okay, one thing is, maybe they're not getting enough schooling education, so they're not actually qualifying.
Yeah.
Or they're opting for other work before, something else. Second is, kids who graduate, they go for jobs, Silicon Valley, Boston, somewhere else, where there are jobs and where there's a better ecosystem.
Yeah.
If I want to start a company, I'd rather go to Cambridge or Bay Area.
Yeah.
Because there is an ecosystem to support.
Exactly.
Okay. So I was trying to bring UNH, NHTA, which is New Hampshire Tech Alliance, and Board of Education together to see how do we address this problem from the bottom up.
How do we create the ecosystem in New Hampshire?
Yeah, that's exactly what this is my work, I was creating it. Japan, that's the whole, creating
When are we
ecosystem
gonna
from the
have
bottom up.
our workshop? Because we're only 10,000 feet on this stuff and it's all
Yeah,
wonderful.
so that's my next point of, which we should transition to. So then we can get lunch. So as far as retreat dates go, I think we're kind of looking at October at this point. So maybe September, October.
Can we have a Zoom meeting if nothing else?
I think it'd be much better to do it in person if we
I
can.
know, but at least we can, because
So
months we are losing.
yeah, I know. So I don't know if we want to open our calendars now and just take a look and see, are there weeks in the fall that are bad for people? Can we start to think about picking some time? I mean, I know October is a big tourism and vacation and explore the outdoors kind of month,
Babies
so.
being born, yeah.
But you don't have to give me an answer now, but maybe take a look. Let's think about maybe September, October ballpark.
Well, Columbus Day is on the 12th of October.
Yep.
So that's usually a weekend off.
Conference I'm going to. Can't get the exact dates though.
I'm traveling a lot in September, or at least the first half.
Okay.
The second half.
I mean, we could even go into early November, but I'd rather do it earlier than that, but
Yeah, 2nd of October if it is. I have to be here in the middle of October, so. But if we set it now, we can hold it. How about the week of 19th?
October 19th?
Yeah, I can't commit.
Okay, you've got a grandkid on the way.
So I'm good until the middle of October,
Okay,
and then I'm out of commission.
The week of the 5th. Schedule a
Yeah, week of
C-section.
5th is also fine.
I mean, yeah, I think that week of the 5th through the 10th.
Yeah.
Is probably decent.
I'm looking at the commissioner's calendar too, because I know she wants to be there, and the week of the 5th, she actually has the 7th, 8th, and 9th kind of on hold, hoping
Oh.
maybe.
Okay,
But
So
what about 5?
the 8th is the regular
What about 5
scheduled
and 6?
meeting.
yeah.
November 8th is, excuse me,
October.
October 8th is a regular meeting,
Are
but
we targeting a single day, all day, or are we targeting 2 days? What are we targeting here?
We're open to options.
So being all day.
And we need a facilitator who can.
Well, that's the other angle is we gotta find that person who can.
Because we need to come out with action items.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think the commissioner, I briefly talked to her after the last meeting or whatever. She said she had someone.
yeah, we've got a person in mind. Who's with the National Association of School Boards.
And if she's already earmarked some dates.
Yep. So
presumably she's already.
well, I think if we look at that 7th, 8th, 9th, our regular meeting is October 8th. But we could do that Wednesday or Friday, maybe.
yep, but the 5th and 6th too, the whole week is fine,
Yeah.
is if you really want to look at that
So
whole week.
if anybody can look at their calendars, is
I
that
couldn't do the 7th or the 8th. I'm not a.
how about 5th,
5th, I could.
it's 6?
5, 6, yeah?
Okay.
6, 7?
I mean.
That's dead, that's dead. My son will tell you that is so 2025.
The following week is open too, the following week in October too, so I
No, but if
just,
we can do that first week, why not?
The one thing I would say is to have our meeting after the workshop.
That's
In case we want to take any action items, we'll be able to do it at that point, because we can't take any action on a workshop.
I could do the 5th or the 6th.
okay,
5th or 6th are good for me.
Same here.
right, I'll move
Checking
this
right now.
over,
Mm.
because you all need to be there, I
Yeah.
think that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
And just to put this out there too, I will not be here for the November meeting. So I don't know if Diana will fill in, but I don't know if you want to be on the road.
Yeah.
In November or
Sure.
explore that or.
Yeah, not too far away in case it snows, but.
That time of year.
that time of year,
In
you never know.
November?
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Hey.
Okay.
No, come on. We all have four-wheel drive.
Yeah. We'll be the only ones there.
So the fifth and sixth.
Early October.
The fifth and sixth are good.
Okay. So Jim's on the fence.
The fifth and sixth.
I think I can do early October.
Okay.
I think I can. I just have to double check.
So why don't we put a pin in October 5th and 6th?
I just did that. And then we have the regular meeting on the 8th.
Yep.
Okay. Great.
On 6th, we have the Innovation Summit in HTA. So
So maybe the Monday, the 5th.
Monday, the 5th is.
I think Monday would be great.
Yeah.
Start the week off. We try to do a whole day. Brainstorm a lot of ideas, do some workshoppy stuff. Come up with some strategies for what we want to tackle.
Right.
I like it.
11th through 13th, I'm gone. So
Yeah. October 5th. it looks like.
Monday the fifth.
Okay.
I think I can do that.
All right.
Monday the fifth.
How about
Okay.
You'll have to say it at
And I
the same
do know
time.
that the commissioner is also working on finding an alternative offsite location.
Okay.
I think that was what she was thinking.
Yeah.
It still has to be considered a public meeting
Yeah,
though,
yeah,
so
Have to
we'll
be
have
available
to,
to the public.
yes, exactly.
We'll make sure it's open.
So that's kind of a little,
Oh, wow. So if you're all of us, we can't
Yes.
meet.
Okay.
We good?
We're good.
is there anything else on the?
Nothing else.
So, yeah, if you're free, come on 18th, 19th. If you're in.
You sent that around, right?
Yeah, I sent the
Okay.
flyer, actually distribute it to your friends or family or share it with people who all want to be part of it.
All right, we need a vote to adjourn.
Yeah.
A motion. Somebody.
Come on, Jim.
I
Make a motion. to
make a
adjourn.
motion that this board adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Yay.